If I can't get a word in edgewise, I'm going to walk directly home in a straight line.
So many possible worlds, but we got this one. So many possible worlds, but we got this one.
Welcome to the Worst of All Possible Worlds, the podcast that you listen to on your commute, walking home in a straight line. I'm the worst of all possible Bryans.
I'm the worst of all possible AJs.
And I'm the worst of all possible Joshes. And for this episode, we are going to be talking about the motion picture Falling Down, the 1993, right? Joel Schumacher film. And we're really excited because joining us for this episode, we have a guest, a very special guest. And you may know him from his YouTube channel, Do Not Eat, where he explains city planning concepts using the PC game City Skylines. And by the way, we've had him on our show before, also to talk about City Skylines.
How about that?
He is also one of the co-hosts of Well, There's Your Problem, which is a podcast about engineering disasters with slides. Welcome to our humble houseboat. We are right here, all together, in person, on the boat.
Yes.
Yeah, you may not know the lore here, Roz, but...
But I think he probably learned it when they had to walk up the gangplank.
Yeah,
Right.
AJ
Well, yeah,
decided that I live in a boat, so
Yeah.
that's what we say I live in now.
So welcome to the boat, Justin Roczniak.
Ahoy.
Ahoy.
Jar.
Are you finding it to be ship shape? Is it up to your liking so far?
Ooh.
I find it to be it's a very good boat. We're here amidships on the podcasting couch.
Yeah.
It is nice to have you because, you know, we have not repaired this boat in a very long time,
Yeah.
and I think we could probably use your expertise.
Well, I can see because you're bailing constantly. you know?
Yeah. It's exhausting.
I'm usually just doing that on bits.
I have no idea what to do with any of this. All I do is swab the poop deck. That's the only term I know.
I would recommend getting a bilge pump. You know, I think that's a good starting point.
Absolutely.
All that water's getting nasty.
Oh, I love pumping that bilge.
Yeah? Go on.
No, I'm bailing on that too.
Gotcha. No, we're here to talk about Falling Down.
Yeah.
This is a movie.
Which is off to starboard. That's another boat word that I know.
Thanks,
There you
Brian.
go.
This is a movie that actually, Roz, you pitched me on coming on the show to talk about, and it's one that this is Josh, hello, I'm Josh, saw maybe 10, 15 years ago or something like that.
Yeah, same. I saw it in high school on TV.
It's one of those movies that I think you see maybe as a teenager, and you're like, whoa. But I was curious, why did you specifically want to talk about this movie right now?
So I've always thought this is a movie about every mechanical engineer, right? they're all about 6 bad days from doing this.
Yep.
Oh, sure.
I mean, having met quite a few of them, having gone to college with a lot of them, I'm like, yeah, this could happen. This could even happen to me, and I'm civil engineer, and that's I think a lot more laid back. Mechanical engineer is very high strung.
Well, and I feel like there's something about the moment that we find ourselves in right now where we are experiencing unprecedented government efficiency.
Yes.
Oh, my
Very
God.
efficient government.
That could
it's
very well
sliding.
push a lot of federal workers down this path.
Yeah, unfortunately,
a lot of-
we have given the engineers way too much leeway. Yeah, they all got emboldened when they got on Reddit, and they're like, oh, there are other people like me. And then they started building social and political power.
Right.
There's a lot of people who are going to walk home in a straight line.
Yeah.
Just through walls,
Yeah.
through trees.
Well, how many times have you seen this movie, Roz?
I've seen this probably 3 or 4 times.
Okay.
Okay.
Probably 2 or 3 of those times were very recently. I think I had seen it once a long time ago, and then my friend June was like, "Hey, you want to watch Falling Down? It'd be funny." I was like, "Yeah, let's rewatch it." And I was like, shit, this is a good movie. I should pitch it to the Worst of All Possible Worlds guys.
Oh, hell yeah.
Have you seen any other right-wing rampage movies aside from this one, like Death Wish,
Postal.
or Joe?
No, not really.
Okay. I think this is a standout as far as right-wing rampage movies go because the movie itself isn't necessarily right-wing.
Right.
Right.
Although maybe.
It's hard to pin down what the politics of this movie are, and I think that's part of what makes it such an interesting thing to talk about. I think we'll be getting more into the politics of it, but yeah, Brian, do you have some stuff about like the history of this kind of film?
I mean, it's not a super thrilling history of this movie in particular, right? It's just kind of a Hollywood story from the 90s. Ebro Smith, who is most well known as an actor, I think he wrote one other screenplay after Falling Down that no one gives a shit about. He just had this idea. He was, I don't know what in particular it was that drove him, but like he was seeing this, things were changing. It's the 90s, man. We're culturally, things have moved and they're continuing to move. And if you're a boomer, that might be rather concerning to you. And he was interested in the people who are not going to live up to the moment, who are not going to be able to change along with it.
And to be clear here, Ebro Smith, very much a boomer, born in San Diego, California.
Sure was.
On June 25, 1949. So squarely in the demo.
And here's the thing. This is like the most San Diego movie I've seen that doesn't involve surfboards. Like,
even though it's set in LA.
Yeah, I know, but this is the politics of San Diego, California.
That makes sense.
Highly military town that also includes a lot of tacos and sitting on the beach. Right?
So this is like the San Diego idea of what LA is.
Yeah, kind of. I mean,
This is like a New Yorker writing a movie about Philly.
yeah, well, that's the thing.
I don't like that.
Oh, no. The way that a San Diegan also views LA is like, well, there's just like a territory that's just gangs, right? It's just gangland as far as the eye can
fucking
see.
no-go zones and shit.
Yeah. And that, you know, in my experience in LA, that isn't particularly truthful to what that town is, which is like 9 other towns that are just all kind of connected under this big hydra. Also, you know, speaking of hydras, this movie, at least in terms of its like hero's journey, does kind of feel like it's doing a little bit of the Odyssey, and maybe I just have the Odyssey on the brain since I'm adapting it right now. But there is sort of like a raising of Michael Douglas's character to be like an Odyssean figure.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Or like The Warriors, which was based on another Greek epic. Like this, okay, here's what every territory of this world is. I'm going on my epic journey through the sort of 90s cosmology. This is what all of America holds.
Most dangerous voyage possible, being a pedestrian in Los Angeles.
Well, that's the other thing, right?
All the fucking sidewalks are closed.
AJ, you mentioned the way that it's just an agglomeration of different towns, and the thing that they're all bounded by is the freeways. Like you feel the streets in this movie, the literal streets, in a way that you don't in most other films.
Yeah, he straight up can't walk home.
Right.
Like, and that's real. That's a true thing about LA.
Yes.
You can't, and about everywhere in America, basically. You can't walk home. The sidewalks will disappear on your ass.
About to say, I've never been to LA, but this does feel like a very like film that shows off a lot of LA.
Yeah.
Like it's a good one in that respect. You know, you get to see around town. I think a lot of the stuff was actually like you can trace where you are as our hero walks in a straight line to Santa Monica.
I do like that he's credited, his nickname is D Fens, which is, he's never referred to as that. It's just his license plate,
It's his license plate number, defense. Because we never get his name.
He's Bill. I believe.
He's Bill. Oh, right. We do get his name.
Because we meet his mom,
moron. But like, that's his credit, is defense, because that's what he is more than anything else. That is his entire identity.
He's an everyman, right? He represents the
until he's not,
right?
Though.
Until he becomes the villain.
He let his job become his personality.
Damn.
And then he got fired. Right. Now he's nothing. He's just a guy.
Right.
I mean, he's a mechanical engineer. He doesn't even have a professional engineering license, probably. Now he's nothing. He's less than nothing.
Now he's the Joker, baby.
And we got Joel Schumacher, who is probably at the best point. Well, I guess he's getting more money in a couple of years, but like he had done a couple of movies that aren't very good,
including St. Elmo's Fire.
Yes.
Come at me in the comments.
That's
that
right.
Movie sucks.
Get him.
He did The Lost Boys, which is actually one that I haven't seen, but that's like the good Joel Schumacher movie.
Yes.
If you're not a fan of Falling Down.
And Flatliners as well is very popular.
Flatliners is not, it's fine. And of course, we know Joel Schumacher because he raped my childhood with a bad credit card.
A bad credit card?
He did, the 2 best Batman movies. This is not a true opinion held by Brian
I was
Alford
going
or
to
the worst
say,
of all
wow,
possible worlds. I
Roz,
really don't like those movies.
Are you a fan of the Schumacher Batmans at all, or do you not have exposure to that?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Batman Forever and Batman and Robin were the two. He was also going to do one called Batman Unchained, where I think he just would have gone full S&M, but it was canceled. It was one of his many projects. Joel Schumacher's career is just littered with projects that never went anywhere.
And occasionally projects that do go somewhere, like Phantom of the Opera or The Number 23.
And this might be a good time just to briefly mention that I actually did meet Joel Schumacher. AJ and I actually, during our time at a theater that we will never name on this podcast,
Amen.
One of the shows that we were not in but were adjacent to was a play that was directed by Joel Schumacher.
The first and only time he ever directed a play.
Yeah.
So you can imagine how that went.
Basically, what I loved about watching that play was that they would establish, because there was no furniture, right? So they would establish that there's a desk there, and then immediately another character would walk through the desk. And I'm just like, what's happening? He would also get very mad at his actors because they wouldn't do the same take every single time.
Oh, sure.
He was like, but we set this yesterday. Why are you doing it differently today?
Because they're trying something new, because it's rehearsal.
Theater.
Yeah.
It was also a 2.5 month process.
It was? I don't even remember that.
It was
That's
a
crazy.
long rehearsal process, and it was just a nightmare, apparently. But you can kind of tell, even from like his films that he makes, that it's like he has a very particular way that his extras, who are not like his main characters, deliver dialogue.
Yeah.
Which
Well,
is
extras don't deliver dialogue.
Well, that's what I mean,
what
like-
makes you an extra, is
the
that you
supporting
can't speak. Because once you speak, then you're on a different contract.
That's true. That's true. But like his supporting characters, yeah.
There's sort of a a premonition here with the play where they walk through the desk. That's just walking directly home in a straight line.
Oh my
God, yeah! He didn't change 20 years.
There's one thing you do as a director, and you make everyone walk in a straight
It's got to
line.
be as straight as it can be. He was actually really nice.
That's what I was hearing, was like he was really nice, except for the people who were working close
Right.
with him, because then he'd just fire them.
Right, because he was kind of a tyrant in that context. But
Yeah.
in conversation, he was always so interested in talking about the different ways that things would come together. And the thing that I remember about talking with him about, is that a sentence that makes sense?
Let's keep it. Yeah.
I did talk with him about was costumes, because that was how at that time
He was a costume designer.
I was
That's how he
working as the
started, yeah.
costume manager at the theater,
Yeah.
and he came up in costume design.
That's right, folks. Josh is a fruity little tailor.
That's so true, Brian.
Like Tim.
And
Tim the Tool Man, fruity little tailor. That's
on,
the joke
AJ.
you wanted to make. Just say it all. Say every word.
I don't. Sometimes
You
the best
make me
jokes,
interpret them.
sometimes the best jokes are the one the audience have to build in their heads.
But they can't build it. You didn't give them enough Binford tools. They needed Alford tools.
I don't think I've ever seen you bail this hard this fast.
I'm so sleepy.
But my point here being Joel Schumacher's eye, his creative eye, like his actual visual process. Costumes are often at the center of it. And when it comes to Falling Down, there are a few shots that are framed well. Most of them are fine. But one thing that I always found to be remarkable was the attention to detail on the costuming.
Yeah, the costuming is great. The production design is great.
Yes.
The location choices are great. I do agree with you about the camera work a little bit. There are a couple of major moments in this movie that are entirely out of focus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not on purpose. Like, obviously, it's like not a choice that he is out of focus.
It seemed like he had like very specific ideas for like a handful of shots in this thing, and he executed those incredibly well, and then he just didn't think about the rest of the movie.
Yeah,
like,
which is
this opening
interesting
shot, yeah.
if you've seen like Batman, because in Batman, every shot is doing way too much all
Yes.
the time.
I mean, ultimately, you're looking at a film about a guy walking home. I
Right.
mean, there's going to be a lot of filler.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
can you imagine they probably shot like 8 or 9 hours of footage that was just the guy walking.
Just a stitch in there.
Honestly, I would have preferred that, because half of this movie is not a guy walking home.
Yeah.
It's Robert Duvall just kind of puttering around.
Yeah.
And it sucks so hard. I do not like that half of the
Disagree.
movie. Really?
I sort of agree and I sort of disagree. I think that the writing is abominable in those
Yeah.
scenes, but
Yeah.
he mostly makes it work.
I love the detective.
He's very jovial.
Yeah, I love the detective work that he doesn't do.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
there's the scene where he has to keep his not his partner, his coworker, because her partner's the other guy. But there's the woman that he's keeping on the line
Right.
to try to connect one incident with all the others, and he's flipping back and forth between her and a phone call with his wife, and he straight up does not need to keep her on the line. He has already gotten what he needs from her, and he just keeps going back to be like, I'm going to put you on hold again.
Yeah. I wanted to briefly mention the work of another director whose work I think this film is in conversation with, which is to say Paul Verhoeven, the director of films such as Total Recall, Basic Instinct, Showgirls.
The guy behind the book about historical Jesus. He wrote a book about the historical Jesus.
Oh my God, really?
I didn't know that.
Yeah. He got really involved in one of those groups that was referenced in the Adventures in Odyssey episode about the Q document.
That rules.
It was a group of academics and also Paul Verhoeven.
I am historical
Jesus. Someone to hear your prayers.
Yes, Josh.
Someone who's dead.
There we go. Okay. I was trying to find a way to bring that one home. But yeah, like I think Paul Verhoeven at this point, one of the most in-demand directors, I would say, in Hollywood for a certain type of movie, right?
Yep. Yes.
The big over-the-top action movie that also has a lot to say about society, right?
Yeah. But in a way that most people watching Paul Verhoeven's movies at that time did not realize that he was saying anything about society.
Right.
You know,
even though it's so obvious in retrospect.
One of the things that unifies all of his work is that it is essentially anti-fascist, but is using the visual language of fascism to communicate that point.
It's just that thing where, like, the further along we get, the more I'm convinced that satire just doesn't work to like the political ends that the people who make it think it does. Like eventually you are just using the language of it and people will interpret it in the language that you're speaking in.
Yeah, it's I mean, you look at a Paul Verhoeven movie and the message is fairly clear. All this fascist stuff is really fucking stupid, guys, huh?
Yeah.
And now all the fascists are like, damn, that's cool.
Yeah, like
so cool.
Like those guys in Starship Troopers were so cool.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that Falling Down is ultimately Joel Schumacher's attempt to make a Paul Verhoeven movie.
The main thing about it is that Joel Schumacher doesn't have a strong perspective.
Nah.
He's not coming into this with any sort of fire in his heart. He's a guy who likes to make movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he also likes to like navigate the business end of it too. Like I think this is a guy who is really obsessed with pitching. I think it's not necessarily the complete J.J. Abrams mindset because J.J. Abrams is his favorite part is the pitch, but like Schumacher, like because he can design like the whole world and build it in his head and present it and then get money for it. And then when he executes it, it's just like he lands in this very centrist view of this character. And I don't think the score of this movie really helps.
I think the score of this movie is one of the worst I've ever heard.
Not very good.
But I think the lack of perspective is what makes Falling Down as fun and interesting as it is. Because it also, instead of being preachy one way or another, it's trying to be a movie about these deeper ambiguities.
We never learn where he's going every day, right? There's like things about the character
they don't say it outright, but I think I have an idea of it. Yeah.
There's so much about this character that's left sort of as a cipher, which I appreciated actually, because, there's no like, and not to knock Psycho, but there's no like thing at the end where it's just like, and here it was everything that was wrong with him in just plain text.
Yeah, they just need Duvall to go back to the police station
and be like,
I'm swearing now. And also, this is what his entire pathology is.
Yeah.
And I will say that, much like the Paul Verhoeven movies where, the fascists are into the imagery, I like this film a lot as an engineer that I am seeing a man walk directly home in a straight line. Which is something I have also done while in a similar state. I mean,
oh, wow.
I didn't have any guns on me, though.
Right.
That's a very heavy bag, too, to carry
that
for
must
that
be
far.
a really heavy bag.
Yeah, he's jacked.
Let's start talking a little bit about, what happens at the beginning of this movie.
Mouth.
Because this movie begins with a reference to Federico Fellini's masterpiece 8.5. And I'm not joking.
Really?
This movie starts in a classic Los Angeles situation. Traffic jam.
Yeah.
Traffic jam.
Everything's all stopped up. Everything's hot. And it's this one big, this is actually a great shot in the movie.
I love this shot.
Big moving shot going out through a car, out of the car, around on the street. This car is stuck on the road. It's in the shade, which is interesting because there's still they're still showing how hot it is, even in the LA shade.
Yeah, it's under a highway overpass.
And this is Los Angeles, and it's before global warming got really bad, so it's probably 82 degrees, 10% relative humidity.
That was something that I did notice about this movie is that air conditioning just is not as like people don't have air conditioning. They have fans.
They used to be optional in the car. Yeah,
the whole movie is orange, by the way. The color grading on this movie is fucking insane.
They put the color filter on that they usually reserve for Mexico.
Yes.
Yep.
It starts off in total silence, actually.
Total silence.
And then as you pan out,
except for his like breath, like in 2001.
Yeah.
Or like in Federico Fellini's 8.5.
There you go.
Which begins with this dream sequence of the Fellini stand-in in his car as a bus is parked next to him, and you just hear his breath.
And then that's exactly what happens here. He's also parked next to a bus full of obnoxious children.
Yes.
There is another car near him that has the world's most horrifying Garfield.
The nefarious Garfield.
And people may not remember this, but the Garfield suction cup craze was fucking massive.
You used to be able to get like a tiger tail you could stick on the gas cap, you know.
Oh,
hell yeah.
That's so much better.
I'm driving
than,
a beast.
That's so much better than truck nuts.
Yeah.
But
you
like
got a tiger in your tank.
it was such a big fad that Jim Davis was actually like, the fad could implode and destroy Garfield entirely. So he actually put an end to sales for suction cup Garfield.
Savvy marketer.
Incredibly
Jim Davis.
savvy.
That's thinking with the brain head.
Because again, why does this Garfield have razor sharp teeth?
Yeah.
What was the design decision behind that?
And there's also bumper stickers, and these bumper stickers go from like inane religious shit to like, you know, how's my driving? Call 1-800-EAT-SHIT.
Yeah. And you know, there's a fly buzzing around on his neck.
Another great way of conveying heat. You get the orange filter and you get a fly and you spray a guy down with glycerin. Everyone is in the theater taking off all their layers.
So Michael Douglas
becoming nude
is in hell, basically. And he makes the decision to get out of his car and start walking home because he has had enough.
Yes, midway on his life journey, he found himself in dark highway, the right road lost.
Some days you just have to walk directly home in a straight line.
I love the gay linoleum salesman who's stuck behind him like, hey, buddy, where are you going?
And so as Michael Douglas starts to walk home, we also see that his car has the license plate D-FENS.
Yes.
Defense.
Yeah.
And we'll be referring to him as Defense for the remainder of this time. He is going to find a way to get home come hell or high water. And a cop rolls up on a motorbike and a couple other guys help him with pushing the car out of the road. And one of these guys is Robert Duvall.
The first thing we see him doing is laughing at the big boob lady.
That's right.
On the advertisement.
He's like, ha, 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 booby.
Yeah.
Robert Duvall, it turns out, is also a cop, along with this motorcycle cop. But he's going to be the primary foil to Defense through this entire film.
Yeah, kind of the de facto protagonist of this, despite it sort of shifts midway through.
I would say that he is the antagonist of the film. Defense is our protagonist the whole time. Wow,
you know, I think there's
certainly in a Greek sense. That's true.
I just mean definitionally.
He's the first one on stage.
No,
that
like
is true.
Definitionally, his journey. We're the one who we are following his journey.
Yes.
And the person who is trying to prevent him from walking in a straight line all the way home is Robert Duvall.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Even
I don't
though he
mean
doesn't know that yet.
That's right.
Yeah.
But what he does know is that there's something kind of unusual about just leaving your car in the middle of the street. And even though it's his last day on the job as a cop, Robert Duvall's like, that's strange.
Oh my God, it's his last day. It's his last day.
That's
on
brand
the
new
force.
information to me.
And he's like he's like a robbery detective, which just means that you fill out a piece of paperwork and never follow up on it.
Right.
It's just like whenever they find like the serial killer, they're like, oh yeah, it looks like he's connected to these robberies that we diligently filed away.
I will say I had a pleasant experience with a University of Pennsylvania police detective who got my stolen bike back.
Wow.
But that's only because I had parked it in front of the police station.
Okay. The first time a bike has ever been recovered.
Yeah, it was like, they caught him in progress. Because he was trying to steal the bike in front of the police station.
That's really funny.
Oh man. It's like robbery 101, my guy.
So from here, we cut to Venice Beach, and there's a woman who's just gotten home. She picks up the phone, and wouldn't you know it, Defense is on the other end at a payphone. And we can already tell from this that something is just wrong. It seems that something has happened. There seems to have been a falling out between Defense and this woman. And
A falling down.
Get your prepositions in now.
Falling around. Falling over.
between.
Falling over.
Falling amongst.
Ooh, falling among us.
Falling up.
Anyway, Defense tries to make the call at first from this payphone. He can't get the words out. Something is wrong. And so he goes into a nearby Korean grocery store to ask for change.
Yeah, he wants to call. He's gonna have to make a lot of payphone calls today.
So he needs some change, and he goes into the store to ask the grocery store owner for that change.
Drink, 85 cents. You pay or go.
What's a phi? I don't understand a phi. There's a V in the word. It's five. You don't got V's in China?
Not Chinese. I'm Korean.
Whatever. You come to my country, you take my money, you don't even have the grace to learn how to speak my language? You're Korean. You have any idea how much money my country has given your country?
How much?
I don't know, but it's got to be a lot. You can bet on that.
You go now. No trouble.
I stay. What do you think of that?
So this is the first thing that we hear, the first real words that we hear from the protagonist of this movie.
Yeah.
And that is buck fucking wild.
Yeah, he's already like racist. He's like, oh, you can't say five?
Immediately out of the gate. It is, and again, I think this is truthful to this type of guy.
Yes.
Yeah. That is absolutely this guy is this is before we were able to post through all this stuff. Everyone,
Right.
You thought you were clever for correcting someone's pronunciation. Thank God we invented the internet and we realized we were all idiots for acting that way.
No, we cleaned that up.
But there's something about this depiction that is plainly racist. There's really no other way of putting it. The way that the grocery store owner is depicted, the way that sort of the balance of power is implied between the two of them. We are, it seems, supposed to be on Defense's side at the beginning here, and it feels like something out of the fucking Turner Diaries.
There's also an association with Korean-owned businesses in LA because the LA riots had happened a year earlier. And people's idea of aid, which is something that has been talked about a lot here in early 2025. Oh, how much money do we give these fucking countries? And it's like, well, it's because we get something out of that.
Right.
We didn't go to Korea because we're like, man, those Koreans, we sure should help them out of the goodness of our hearts. We better pour a lot of money and kill a lot of Koreans to save the Koreans.
Yeah, no,
the goodness of our hearts.
Yeah, despite
Christian charity.
Despite what the U.S. State Department may tell you, that is not why we went to Korea.
We went in to get some nice, convenient corner stores.
Yeah,
that was it. That was it. But it is a fascinating choice to be like, to walk into this movie, this be like the first thing that you see him do besides being upset at traffic, which is a universal, like, of course, everyone's felt this way in a traffic jam before, especially if you live in LA. And then the next thing you see him do is threaten a local business owner.
Yes.
And that actually, to me, I think it's a good choice because it means that you immediately are repelled by this guy. And so it makes all of his action, it like dictates the rest of the actions throughout the film, the way you interpret those actions.
Well,
but it depends on who you are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It depends on what your own perspective about Korean business owners and the
Yeah.
price of a Coca-Cola are.
Right. It's the Starship
85
Troopers thing,
cents.
right? Where it's just like a fascist watching is gonna be like, this is badass.
Yeah, because it's like, oh yeah, I'm giving this. He's giving this guy the what for, just like I would.
This is a guy who's been driven too far. We should talk a little bit about what Defense looks like as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you want to describe? Because you know the engineering stereotype, Roz. Do you want to describe this guy for us?
So, Defense is a mechanical engineer. Right. He is an office jockey. He is doing drawings. So he has the short sleeve dress shirt,
Yep.
and the tie and slacks. This is, classic engineer dress.
He's even got the pens in the
He's
breast
got
pocket
the
with
pens
the pocket
in the
protector.
pocket protector.
Yep.
Yeah, he's got, this is how I used to dress.
Oh, really?
Not quite exactly like this, because usually I wore long sleeves. But if I was in the office, I would look a lot like that. He's clean shaven.
Right.
He's got sort of high and tight haircut.
Yeah,
He's got
awful haircut.
Yeah,
But,
exactly.
but that is a very specific haircut. That is the boomer haircut.
This was my dad took me to the barber shop every 2 weeks as a kid and forced me to get this haircut because it was 1957 kind of haircut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he has stuck with that for the rest of his life.
But in terms of he is the archetypical defense contractor. And I think since this movie has been out, I know there's been a couple others. The one that comes to mind is the Pentagon Wars, where, if you have the defense contractor engineer, they all look exactly like him. And, they also look like him in real life.
Well,
if you work for Raytheon, you work for Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, this is the dress code.
And he's also got the horn-rimmed glasses. And to provide another a comparison, this is the character design of Frank Grimes from The Simpsons. They based the look of that character on defense.
He's got 3 pens in his pocket protector, and they are red, white, and blue.
Yep.
And it's just Schumacher is not being subtle here.
No.
He is trying to kind of, and the screenplay and the screenwriter too are trying to capture America in one guy in all of its messy fucking contradictions and inherent racism.
What are you going to do with a white pen?
I have no idea.
Maybe it's a whiteout pen.
I guess so.
I think it's just a white. I think it's white in terms of the casing.
Like a black
but
pen
I
with a
think it's
white
just a
tube
regular
or
black
whatever.
pen.
That's false advertising.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's probably
a ghost pen.
I think the blue one has blue ink, the red one has red ink, and the white one has black ink.
So
Yes.
I wanted to real quick also pull it back to the thing you were saying, AJ, about how this sort of makes you step right back again, right?
Yeah.
Assuming it does, which I think it has a lot to do with your ideological priors and how you bring them into the film.
Absolutely.
But I also wanted to draw a comparison between this movie and The Social Network, which we also just talked about.
Yeah.
Which has an opening scene that makes you realize that the protagonist is a fucking asshole.
Yeah, I mean, in both of those situations, it is someone being racist against an Asian nation. So, I mean, it's got that going for it. But also, it's just, I don't know, that's a Sorkin project. That's
Right.
The Social Network. And nobody in Sorkin projects really resorts to violence unless it's a last.
Yeah, it only happens when I say you're not a newsman. And then you can punch me in the face.
Yes.
God damn it.
But and in this one, violence is the go-to thing.
Yeah.
It is, even when he tries to reason with them, everyone that Defense encounters is a cartoonish version of themselves.
Yes.
And all of them are itching for a fight.
Yes.
Because if they weren't, this character would be the most despicable in American cinema, and they were trying really desperately to make you understand, to be on his side.
Yeah. I think also with The Social Network, with a Sorkin protagonist, he is presenting to you in that first scene an exceptional person.
Yeah.
He's presenting a Hank Reardon right in the first 5 minutes of anything that he makes, but especially The Social Network.
Right.
And Defense is supposed to be the average person.
Right.
Yes.
The average, white guy. But of course, that's assumed.
But I mean, Roz, you grew up around all sorts of guys like this, right? These were the dads of your world.
I see this guy and all I hear is 50 people telling me the same joke in college.
Yeah.
It's mechanical engineers make weapons, civil engineers make targets. It's okay, listen, I'm not building bombs for Israel.
Yeah. I remember, because it's such a noble profession going into engineering. And every engineer does fancy himself a Hank Reardon.
Yeah, then you wind up working for Raytheon and Lockheed Martin.
Well, and I remember there was a guy I went to church with growing up, and the first time we were back from college, and I saw him, and I was like, "Oh yeah, so he was at New Mexico Tech," and I was like, "What are you studying? What are you thinking of getting into with your major?" And he's like, "Oh, I want to make bombs," and I laughed because I was like, No, you don't. Like,
Why?
You're like this little loser. I've known you my entire life. There's no, he's a fucking serial killer. This guy's a sick motherfucker.
But I think to that point, right? If you're like a little weenie and you can grow up to build something that obliterates a lot of people, there's something to be said about like the masculinity of that, I guess.
Yeah,
as
it makes your
expressed through
pee-pee feel good.
violence. Yeah, no, right.
Yeah.
I mean, grow up, be an adult, do facade inspections. That's right. What I did.
Yeah.
What if you
Do something useful with your life.
saved lives?
Look, facade inspections make my pee-pee feel good. So
exactly.
it can also make your pee-pee feel good.
I did something good for society. I stopped a big corbel from a cornice falling on someone's head.
Yes.
Walking into the bar after an inspection. Hey, baby, you want to take a look at this facade?
This facade is load-bearing.
Ooh,
if you know what
okay.
If you know what I mean.
What do you mean?
Imagine one that wasn't.
Yeah.
Like you just shoot one rope at it and it collapses.
I wanted to also play the latter half of this first scene here because basically they go back and forth about the coke for a bit.
Yeah, because primarily he wants a quarter to put in the phone so that he can menace his ex-wife again.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, come on, let me menace my ex-wife.
And he wants 2 even quarters, but the coke costs 85 cents.
That's right. And the grocery store owner is unwilling to negotiate. And so Defense proceeds to do this.
I speak slowly and distinctly.
Take the money!
You think I'm a thief? No. See, I'm not the thief. I'm not the one charging 85 cents for a stinking soda! You're the thief! Just standing up for my rights as a consumer. I'm rolling back prices to 1965. What do you think of that?
He's got a baseball bat.
Donuts. Package of 6, how much?
$1.12.
Smashes the donuts.
Too much.
And
I like the guy, like he says the honest price every time, and Michael Douglas fucks up and he's like, oh man.
And so finally he gets to the can of Coke. He's like, how much does it cost? The guy is like 50 cents. He throws a couple, he puts down the dollar, takes the 2 quarters back. And this is, I'm going to be cataloging this throughout this film, sort of boomer mindset moments, right?
Yes.
This is boomer mindset moment number 1. Prices just aren't what they used to be. If only we as consumers had more rights.
I gotta say, I think this is unfortunately closer to reality than you would think because so I go to a corner store to get groceries when I don't feel like going to the big grocery store.
Right.
Of course, recently there's been a lot of inflation in the price of eggs.
Yeah.
And so my corner store they stopped displaying the eggs because apparently people were just screaming at the owner
about the price of eggs.
Eggs are too expensive, so they just stopped displaying them. I had to ask the guy to go in the back and get me some eggs. Like I was,
we got a black market for eggs now.
Yeah, exactly. It was like I was buying illegal fireworks. I mean,
well, and that's what like the 2020s falling down would be. It would be eggs that would kick this off.
Yeah, exactly.
But like, there's nothing better and more American than a Coke.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
He's trying to buy a Coke, but he can't buy a Smile because they charge too much for the Coke.
Yeah. And I like the idea of the Coke offering a temporary reprieve from the heat.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
We are taught as Americans that products will relieve the pains of our lives.
Well, and that's the thing about the
they do.
And that's the whole thing. This idea of consumer rights, which to me is just one of the funniest fucking things. It's the idea that
it's a real thing. You want to have stuff that doesn't kill you.
No, of course.
You know?
But the idea of defining yourself as a consumer,
Yes.
it's a thought. It's
we're starting
essentially
a consumers union.
Yeah,
I love to consume things.
it's a thought-terminating cliche that I think inhibits any sort of real organized action because rather than perceiving yourself as somebody who exists in this broader world of market forces, you can only define yourself as a consumer, one who is acquiring goods.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing gets me off quite like a disposable product I'm gonna have to buy over and over again.
Yeah.
Instead of
Like a
facades.
plastic bag, that's fucking great.
Yeah.
Give it to me.
And to mention that bat that he was busting everything up with, that belonged to the shop owner,
Right. Yes.
right? Something that he uses for self-defense. I just saw someone was trying to like fuck around with one of the shops just a block away from here. There was one night I was just taking a walk, and I just saw the dude behind the counter pull out this huge fucking stick. And he just sort of. I mean, he doesn't. He was behind glass and stuff, so he doesn't really have much leverage
Oh,
to
it was a
really
liquor
hit the
store?
guy.
Sure.
But no, it wasn't a liquor store. For whatever reason, there's just one. All these other stores are like way open, but there's just
Okay.
one store that's closed up, and that's the one that the guy decided to rob. He was
Well, that was
drunk
unwise.
out of his mind. So the guy just sort of swats him a few times,
No,
and he
no, no,
stumbles out of the store. It
Get
was
out the spray
amazing.
bottle.
Well, now we've started to tap into the boomer mindset, but
Yeah.
we might as well see the counterpoint to that, right?
Yeah.
Because defense now, he takes the baseball bat with him, and this is his sort of first Odyssey moment, right? He's
Yes.
acquired the key item.
Yes.
Briefcase, baseball bat. This
Right.
is the image of the movie.
Right.
Yeah.
And now we go back to Robert Duvall,
Yeah.
who, again, we saw very briefly at the beginning, helping to push that car away. We learn once again that it's his last day.
Yeah.
How many times do they tell us that it is Robert Duvall's last day on the
you
job?
have to set it up. You have to say it every scene when it's someone's last day. This is just,
Yeah.
and I love that they're like, oh, you remember the last guy who was retiring? He was in a different movie. Like he lived the movie example of dying on his very last day.
I think that it would be something that I think is lampshading itself, but this script isn't that smart.
No.
I think they should have committed to the bit and killed him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Or like he makes it home and then he falls down the stairs.
And then he
Do you
falls
know what
down.
I mean?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Falling down.
I love
Yeah.
the falling down part of falling down.
Yeah.
This is actually what the title is referencing. None of the other stuff.
The way that the title is incorporated into this movie on like the Michael Douglas side of it,
Yeah.
great, fantastic, great title for it. But they try to shoehorn it into Duvall's plot line, and it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
Robert Duvall. Here's what we need to know about him. Again, it's his last day.
What?
I know. He has a picture of a little girl in a frame because
So obviously dead daughter.
dead daughter.
First time
dead
you see
daughter,
it, you're like,
folks.
okay,
So
dead
he's got a
daughter.
dead daughter.
Yeah.
He's also got an erotic wife who is looking to move to Lake Havasu City, which
They said erotic.
It sounded
wife.
like you said an erotic.
he has a
wife.
very erotic wife.
Yes.
And
Oh my!
they're looking to move to Lake Havasu City because that is mostly just because London Bridge is there.
Yeah.
And get it? The movie's called Falling Down, folks.
And an insane fucking man bought London Bridge.
Yes.
Yep.
And this is
moved
real.
it
One of-
to Lake Havasu.
Yeah,
City.
one of the planners for Disneyland, actually. He was like, my next big project after
here we go.
Disneyland is this going to top it. This is going to be the thing everyone thinks about is I'm going to get a really plain looking flat fucking bridge.
Put it in
and putting it in
Arizona.
Arizona.
Well,
Yes.
I mean, the thing is, New London Bridge is absolutely nothing to look
It's
at.
garbage.
It's really,
It's really bad.
It's just, it looks like a highway overpass.
Well,
Oh,
and the
God.
joke was always, and it's not true, but like people were like, did he think he was buying Tower Bridge? He was like,
right.
I'm going to bring Tower
It's
Bridge.
Tower
to Lake
Bridge.
Havasu. That was
Pretty impressive. Yeah,
bridge.
very impressive. But
Horrible wedding cake.
it's also,
I don't mind it, but you know, I am willing to entertain the sort of critical thing there. You know, it should.
Yeah.
It was. You know, there was a chance there they were going to leave it bare like the George Washington Bridge, but that didn't, because that was also supposed to get a sort of a granite Gothic facade.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Really?
Yeah, but that never happened, and I think aesthetically it's better off for it.
Yeah.
was that facade load bearing?
No.
Oh, no.
Do not come. Do not come.
Do not come.
George Washington Bridge come challenge impossible.
I never come when I'm on that bridge.
I always go. So I get what the movie's going for with this London Bridge metaphor.
Yeah.
Right? Like that this guy took this old thing, put it in America,
Right.
and nobody gave a shit about it. Like
Yeah.
I see the metaphor there, but it's so pained because it's also the song that calms his wife down when she's being too crazy.
Yeah.
His wife, who he only ever interacts with on the phone. Like we never get a moment of the two of them together in this
right,
film
yeah.
because he's too busy doing his last day on the job.
Yep.
Yeah.
And she's too busy like, I've seen this movie. You die. You will die today. And she's also struggling with her mental health.
Yes.
And this wife is played by Tuesday Weld.
Yeah, just a real waste of her talents, this role,
But
I think. She does a lot with it. But
Really smart casting, because Tuesday Weld is someone who went through the absolute ringer back when she was a kid as a child model and actress in the 50s and the 60s.
God.
Like, Tuesday Weld lived a full life before she was even 12 years old. And because so much of this movie is about how things used to be good before 1965, here's a living example of how horrible everything really was.
Yeah, that's smart. That's really, really smart.
with that sort of framed up, we now know about Robert Duvall and his mission, which is to get through his last day of work intact. And we go back to defense, right?
It really is like, okay, it's my last day on the job as a cop. I better get myself into a life-threatening situation.
Yeah, exactly. and
I'm sick of being a desk jockey.
Yeah.
And all the other cops, like, they're razzing him all the time. They put sand in his drawer.
kitty litter, I guess.
Yeah. Cops suck. I mean, and it's nice to see this movie portray the LAPD
True.
as sucking, because they do. They suck.
I don't know what the joke is there.
Oh, the joke is that they're assholes.
Well, yeah, I know. It's
but
like the joke
what?
of putting cat litter in your desk. I don't get it.
I guess that's one last thing you have to do on your way out is like literally clean out your desk.
You know, I would just walk out. What are they going to do? Fire me?
Yeah, and that his wife actually says that to him at one point. Is just like, what the fuck are they gonna do? Just leave? And he's like, but we see
But
like
he's
the
busy
conflict
being
there.
the only good cop in LA.
You
Yes.
can just
And-
walk out,
and you
cops,
can
if you're quick.
Absolutely, and you can tell even from this first scene that like his heart really isn't in leaving the force, right? Like he does genuinely seem like he has unfinished business,
Right. Yeah, no, and who better to drag him into some unfinished business than defense?
Yes.
Because as we continue to follow him around town, and as we'll recall, he's just walking in a line toward his home. He ends up, I guess, in gang territory.
Yes.
He
Gangland, LA.
Yeah.
gets approached by a couple of street toughs.
That's right.
Yeah.
They're up to no good.
Two Latino gangbangers.
Yeah,
Yes.
and this is what that sounds like.
This is a gangland thing, isn't it? We're having a territorial dispute. I mean, I've wandered into your pissing ground or whatever the damn thing is, and you've taken offense with my presence, and I can understand that. I mean, I wouldn't want you people in my backyard either. This is your home, and your home is your home, and I respect that. So if you would just back up a step or two, I'll take my problems elsewhere. Okay? Fair enough?
What do you think?
I think it should be a toll.
Good idea. It should be a toll.
Listen, fellas, I've had a really rare morning. I mean, I'm not in the mood to...
What should he pay? How about that fucking briefcase, man?
Good idea. Give us your briefcase, man.
I'm not giving you my goddamn briefcase.
Motherfucker, give us your motherfucking briefcase.
Butterfly knife.
Yep. Pulls out a butterfly knife because he's an ethnic, and that's what they like to use.
And defense, of course, gives him the briefcase to the face.
That's right.
Whoa!
Yeah, he uses
Incredible.
that bat. He clears these guys. He fucking knocks them down and gets on his way.
And so,
It's sort of incredible male nerd fantasy here.
yes.
I mean,
And this again
everyone thinks they can do this.
this is where I think the movie runs up against its own contradictions.
Yeah.
It really wants you to buy into this idea of defense being the alpha male who is defeating these ethnic street toughs in hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah,
And it wants you to think he's cool in this moment. I think it is
Yes.
it is very much putting its finger on the scale.
Yes.
And it's sort of, again, it's a boomer mindset moment of like, we'd all be better off if we just left each other alone, except that I should be allowed to go wherever I want, even if that means going into your space.
I
Right.
think in reality, he got stabbed there, and the rest of this is sort of a reverie.
I mean, it does kind of feel like that at times, right? Like,
Yeah.
part of me thinks that he is just still in that traffic jam,
Yeah.
having a nervous breakdown, and that the whole rest of this is a fantasy, if not for the Robert Duvall
Right.
sections of it that sort of grounded in
no,
this reality.
that's also part of the fantasy.
Oh, it is. He's just having an
That's
entire
like-
B plot
yeah.
that he's imagining as
Who
well.
hasn't gotten stuck in traffic and be like, yeah, I really want to wreck up a Korean guy's store right now.
I mean, it could be like an American Psycho type deal. I don't know what to do with this because it's just so racist.
No,
so racist.
God.
Very racist.
It's I mean, it's fun because it's so far out. I mean,
Right.
we were talking about Phone Booth as well, and how
Right.
much we love Phone Booth. That is an insanely racist movie.
Yes.
But it's like Looney Tunes racist.
Right.
It's just so ridiculous. And because it's so old now, too, it's just like, my God, what is happening right now?
Yeah. It's also that he like fully like it kind of looks like, you know, when Austin Powers fights thugs, just goes judo chop and they all come at him one at a time. But it's supposed to be taken seriously in this moment that he just completely disarms this one guy and his friend is just like, I'm going to let you do that for a while and now I'm coming in. Like it's so I think that helps sell the nerd fantasy of it.
Yeah,
like you were saying,
exactly,
Justin.
exactly. Everyone thinks, I'm going to meet two guys in a gang and I'm going to become Ip Man.
Yeah. Like, it makes sense he's just busting stuff up, or once he gets a gun, well, like, now you have a gun.
Yeah, busting makes him feel good.
And, like, you don't need to have to go to the gym to be good at using a gun, but you kind of do if you're using a sawed-off baseball bat.
And I gave him an ocular pat down.
I do think, though, that there's one other thing going on here, and maybe this is just me bringing my, I don't know, liberal arts bullshit to this. But I think there is an analysis of this movie to be done where defense is just a stand-in for the United States of America itself, and specifically American military imperialism, where you've got the situation in the grocery store as a metaphor for the Korean War, which I think is made pretty explicit, actually. And then you can see this scene, and especially what happens directly after, as a metaphor for American intervention in Latin America, specifically Panama.
Yeah.
Panama, CIA ops in Panama were ongoing at this time.
The thing that makes that metaphor work, though, is if he has a gun.
Right.
Is if,
Right.
Because what we bring to the table, basically throughout most of the history of America's involvement, including the westward expansion, Korea, Vietnam, Philippines, whatever, is that we're bringing incredible firepower along with us that is unmatched by whoever we're facing.
But I might also argue that the way that his weapons sort of progress, that can also be seen as a metaphor for the advancement of American arms throughout the history of modern warfare.
Sure, except American arms always included guns because we're that young.
Yeah, this is where I feel stupid because, when you said the situation in the grocery store, my mind immediately went to, wait, the guy from Jersey Shore?
Yeah, Mike the Situation.
You can't put him in a grocery store. He always causes a situation.
Yeah, that's right.
It's with the melons mostly. So
And instead of getting a rocket launcher later, he'd end up with a grenade.
And why is that?
Oh, so I'm the only one who's actually watched the Jersey Shore? Jesus Christ.
sorry, Brian. Oh, we've abandoned you.
A grenade is like the busted chick who's hanging out with all of her hot friends that someone in your group needs to fall on the grenade
right.
so that everyone else can fuck the hot
I
ladies.
actually have watched the Jersey Shore, but it was a long, long time ago.
God, I'm the only one with culture.
That's what the Bruno Mars song is about.
That's precisely what the Bruno Mars.
I've never actually watched it. I just hear stuff that my dad talked about it.
Was your dad a big fan of Jersey Shore?
What? Wait, no, hold on.
Hell yes.
How did that come about?
I have no fucking idea. I'm confused about the Jersey Shore.
Does
in general.
does he like reality TV in general, or was it just the Jersey Shore?
I think he keeps better abreast of the culture than I
Does
do.
he
see.
is he just like a
Really?
big MTV guy? Is he just watching ridiculousness for like 14 hours a day now?
No, mostly I watch Fox News. But
Okay.
might have heard it all secondhand from Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah,
and then
right.
I'm getting it thirdhand.
Rush Limbaugh, huge Jersey Shore fan.
Yeah.
So they have these things that they call grenades.
So back in the world of falling down, moving away from the Jersey Shore for just a moment, the grocery store owner from before comes by the police office to make a statement, and this immediately gets Robert Duvall's attention.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, that's odd. Like, he wrecked everything, but he didn't actually steal anything? Like, what the fuck is that all about?
And so then they're like, oh, this is the robbery desk. We have to bring you to the assault desk
Because
or whatever.
that's the thing. He didn't actually get robbed.
Except for his baseball bat.
I mean, I would still
Yeah.
say that since he was underpaid for the coke, that would be a robbery, right?
Yeah,
Of
Yeah,
sorts.
a very petty larceny, but petty larceny.
But either way,
nevertheless.
they're like,
That's
no.
35 cents right there.
Yeah, we have to
Right.
take you to the assault desk now.
And that was the margin that the whole store was operating under. Was
Oh
that
my
35
God,
cents?
It went under right afterwards.
No! But Duvall, he's holding on to this because he knows this is going to be important for the plot later.
And so Defense, on his end, once again tries to make a call on the payphone, once again has trouble speaking, and we're really seeing now that something seriously fucked up is going on between him and this woman. And that fucked upness becomes explicit when he starts talking about what his plans are for today.
I'm coming home.
What are you talking about?
I just, I want to let you know that I'm coming home for her birthday.
Oh, you're not coming here.
Listen, Beth. I gotta see you.
No. No, you listen to me. This is my house now. I pay the rent. I mean, you don't even pay child support. You just can't walk in and out whenever you feel like it.
Don't talk like that, Beth. I have to come home. I have to bring her a present.
And this is the central thing for Defense. I'm coming home. The sheer number of times he says, I'm going home, I'm going home, I'm going home.
He just wants to go home.
But the thing is,
Hey,
It's
honey,
not
I'm-
his home.
I'm coming home. I'm definitely not going to do a murder-suicide.
right.
Yes,
Because
yes.
that's the thing, right? Is it's not his home anymore.
Well, and there's a really interesting thing when she's like, you don't pay the child support, you don't pay the rent. Earlier, we saw him with a hole in his shoe that he's fixing with newspaper because it's 1940. And we're
Yes.
like, wait a second. He's got a dress shirt kind of job.
Yeah.
He's got a briefcase job. Where's his money going?
Right.
Because you could be like, oh yeah, dad's rights. He's all paying alimony to the bitch wife, but he's not paying alimony to the bitch wife.
Now, I will say, having clothes that are falling apart, that's also an engineer thing.
That's
I
true.
haven't-
Yeah.
I haven't quite gotten over that myself. My shoes are like shit right now.
But it's also screenwriter shorthand.
Yeah.
He's got a hole in his shoe. He hasn't replaced his shoes. I'm a big shot Hollywood actor. I always replace my shoes.
Yep.
I think this is really good work here from Barbara Hershey as well.
Yes,
yes.
Given what, again, I think the writing just isn't there for her character.
For her and Tuesday Weld. It's
really
just like
any of the women in this movie.
This,
but
this movie doesn't have a high opinion of women, I would say,
Nah.
across
doesn't
the
have a high
board.
opinion of men either.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
like, this is not a
yeah.
movie where
She
anyone
was.
has much depth.
I think
Yeah.
there's like a spectacular array of toxic masculinity
Yeah.
on
Yes.
offer in this movie. You get it from basically every angle possible.
And
It's
in
great.
this, in this specific case, it is the toxic masculine thing of asserting ownership over women, basically.
And there's also an interesting dynamic of, I think this is interesting. There's this blue squirt gun. That's a
Yeah.
Yeah.
very realistic in size and shape and
Yes.
design squirt gun, other than the fact that it's, clear blue plastic, that his daughter has. She's not playing with a girly toy, even though he gets her a sort of girly looking present later. But she is playing with this very masculine toy because she doesn't have the proper gender roles being brought to her because she doesn't have both parents in the home currently.
Oh, interesting. I didn't
She
even think
uses
about
her
that,
big
yeah.
squirt gun to shoot the TV.
That's right.
Yes.
How dare!
And this is also the time when squirt guns looked more realistic,
Yeah.
right? You can't really get
true. Yeah,
these
That's
anymore.
because of woke. I mean,
Oh,
you know,
fuck.
Yeah. Woke happened about a month before Falling Down came out, and then
I
that
think
made the
that's
squirt
probably
guns
why he
woke.
decided to walk directly home in a straight line.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
He
because-
got, yeah, he got
you don't
pissed
get-
off at the at DEI.
Right.
Yeah, you don't
yeah.
get a lot of you get a lot of extreme close-ups of like the road sign because they want to see the little like yellow things flip, but you don't see what the road sign says overall. But it's actually we're doing woke to the road right now. That's
I
what
see.
caused the
He
traffic
got
jam.
fired and replaced by a black woman.
Walking roundabout home is woke now.
Yeah.
Although, put a pin in that because there is also an ostensibly pro-black racial comment that
Yes.
happens a little bit later.
This is true. This
which
is true.
The only explicit racial commentary this film makes
Yeah.
that isn't Well, honestly, I don't even think the fucking ethnic shit about the Korean grocery store owner or the Latino gang is intended to be racial commentary.
Yeah,
right.
It's intended to be examples of just what life is like in this fucked up world.
This is what LA is
Look,
these days.
I'm not racist. I'm just an asshole.
No, exactly. Exactly. That's what it is.
Yeah.
You're never quite on your 2 feet the entire time.
You got a hole in your shoe.
That's right. It feels like the ground is always giving way below you. And
maybe
And
if
then
the ground is giving
you
way.
fall down.
oh my
Whoa.
God. So the gang from before, the gang that previously menaced defense about the briefcase, well, they're still rolling around.
Yeah, because he didn't finish the job.
And so they find him. They find him at the payphone. They decide to fuck his shit up. They all bust out a ridiculous number of guns.
Yes.
And
Every gun in the world.
Every gun in the
they
world.
say.
So,
And this
really,
is- and-
really shitty drive-by.
and
Yeah,
this
oh my
is
God, it's so bad.
this is a moment where it's like, oh, we're in cartoon land now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because there are so many guns, there are so many bullets, and yet somehow defense does not get hit at all.
Yeah,
No.
they
Yeah,
waste like 2 people on
Right.
that sidewalk. They shoot whoever is like inside the little flower shop. It's a really nice looking store.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he's on the payphone breathing, and not a single bullet hits him. Yeah, I think it's just looking at like how impoverished these places are. Drive-bys are a big thing in the early 90s. At this point in time, we're
Because
still
of-
at that
because of
really,
all the
really
lead.
high.
All the lead in people's
I'm
brains.
sure lead is certainly a part of it. There are other
Wow.
factors at play.
Definitely, once you get shot, there's a little bit more lead in
Hey,
there.
okay.
Yeah.
There's also an element here where I feel like the movie could go in the direction of like everything happened because of just the right number of circumstances all meeting up. Like there's almost a cosmic level of luck, both good and bad,
Yeah.
that Michael Douglas defense is facing. And instead they take it in a much more cracked direction, which is these ethnics don't know how to aim guns.
Yes.
Like us white men do.
I feel like this is definitely something which has happened.
A failed drive-by.
A drive-by where they shot everyone except
the target.
I'm sure that
pretty
happens
sure that
most
has
of the
happened,
time.
Yeah.
And then they immediately eat shit, right? They crash
Yeah,
into a
right.
car and
Yes.
get their comeuppance pretty immediately. The violence in this movie is intense, but it's not Paul Verhoeven intense.
No, it's not.
Well, like imagine if Paul
Yeah.
Verhoeven had directed that scene in the drive-by, we'd see every bullet hit and
They'd
every
be
all
ragdolling
these
all over the
squibs
place, yeah.
exploding. But as it stands, it's just kind of weak. It's like someone goes, "Ah, my leg," and they're like dead. Like
Yeah.
it's
Which
it's a
again is
little-
him like being like, you never even learned how to aim this thing. And
Right.
he's like, this is how you do it. Oops, I missed. Oops, I hit you. See?
Right.
You know, it feels like Jack Bauer in 24.
It does.
stabbing
It
the guy
really
in the
does.
leg.
What it made me think of was Walter White. Even.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
these guys don't know how to do it, but once we get suburban white dad in here, he's able to get it all figured out.
And
Yeah,
it's,
yeah.
it's,
Another,
it's
another white male fantasy.
and it's just
Yes.
again,
I'd love to shoot a guy in the leg.
and it feels weird for that exact moment. There's something that is clearly supposed to be cathartic about it, but at the same time, you're not supposed to like this guy.
Yeah.
And it's not presenting it in an ambiguous way where you could take either side. It's so clear that it wants you to think that this guy is cool as hell in this moment.
Yes.
Yes.
Because the movie is just swaying wildly from one place to the next. He's cool. He sucks. He's cool. He sucks.
He can shoot a guy in the leg, though. We know that much.
You can.
Yes. That is one of his powers.
Naturally, news of this drive-by shooting makes its way back to Robert Duvall. There's this scene where the police captain, pitches him on staying because procedurally he has to. I don't know.
Don't know what the fuck any of this
I don't know what the
is.
scene is.
I mean, it's basically to establish like his backstory, but then to also double down on the fact that everyone on the police force thinks he's a coward.
Right.
So he has somewhere to go.
Yeah, right. They really want to establish he's the only good cop. And so all the other cops, except for this one young woman, they all hate him.
Right.
Yes.
Because all
Probably.
these cops are bad guys.
He probably never joined the LA sheriff's gangs, you know?
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
no.
And there's even like a point made a little bit later that's like, you never swear. I don't trust
Right.
a guy who doesn't say
That's
swears.
the captain as well. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that was a weird line.
Yeah.
I didn't like that. I was like, damn, this seems like a nice guy right here. I don't like this.
Like, I like swearing too, but I have nothing against people who don't.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't swear, except I used to work on boats, as we're on one right now.
That's true.
Yes, of course, yes.
You got back on the boat and immediately you started swearing. It was crazy.
Oh, shit, God damn.
It might be also all the holes we have in the deck.
Yeah.
I'm still bailing.
Yeah.
I can't believe you brought me here to just bail.
No, and I appreciate it. I really do.
And I think it's interesting. Yeah, the position that this movie takes on cops, on LA cops, is like, because he's the only good cop, the other cops don't even know him. He straight up cannot associate with them if he wants to maintain his innocence.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he is very innocent. The way that Duvall plays this guy, he's just like a happy golly gee Willikers kind of, nose to the grindstone kind of cop.
Yeah, he's almost like the detective in The Wicker Man.
Yeah.
You know, he's just like, I'm a virgin. I go to church every Sunday. They don't mention church. They don't say if he's Christian or not, but like they could have gone in that direction.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a detective. He doesn't go out there and beat people up unless maybe he did back in the day. But he doesn't do it anymore.
But that's the thing is, I don't think he did.
Apparently he used to like go out more, but he specifically chose a job where he was at the desk, and they talk about that a little bit later. Yeah.
What I find so interesting about this entire B plot of this movie is that every time it cut away from it, I think it actually just like decreased the tension of Michael Douglas's straight line journey home for me. And it felt like I would have liked a movie that was just entirely about him walking home.
Yeah.
You
and
want
didn't
something
give you the reprieve of these scenes.
Yeah, you kind
I
of
actually want a map in the corner so I can,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you want it's a mad world, right?
Yeah. This makes you think a lot about It's a Mad World because Prendergast, Duvall's character, is Spencer Tracy in that movie.
Yes, 100%.
Listen to your mother. And I get what you want from this movie is you want like No Country for Old Men. You want that tension just constantly getting ratcheted up without any moment to really be able to breathe.
Well, and if this were a Paul Verhoeven movie, that's what it would be like.
Yeah.
Or when we would cut away to the police station, it would be like total and complete camp to the point where I wouldn't feel the tension like diminish because I would be in a cartoon land in a way that this really does try to be the more serious and grounded parts of this movie.
Yeah, it really, really wants you to empathize with the Robert Duvall character for some reason, and I don't know why.
Yeah. Because Robert Duvall, he's the good guy.
I mean, eventually what it comes down to is that he and Defense, they're both men who have been outpaced by progress, by the way the world is headed, but one handles it correctly.
Yeah.
And one does not.
Which one of these characters does it fundamentally consider to be taking the quote unquote right approach? To me, it feels like it swings back and forth all the time.
Maybe, but I think also another thing that happens with the scene where he shoots the street toughs, is it's also establishing that Defense is cold.
Yeah.
This is not, he didn't actually just go nuts today.
Right.
This is a guy who's got like sick thoughts in his mind, and now he's just finally like living them out.
And I think this ties back into this idea of like, well, what do defense industry contractors really do all day, and why do they do it? It's because they're sick fucks.
Yes. Ultimately, you go to work for these places, you are building bombs that kill kids. I mean, this is, some people seem to be able to handle this, but I think, everyone's about 6 bad days away from doing this.
Yeah.
Or they didn't take a job in the defense contracting industry.
You know, in American Psycho, you get to the end of that movie.
Right.
And it's like, oh, he may not have been killing anyone. He just draws little sick drawings while he's at work all day. Right. He has the fantasy in sort of the way any kind of ordinary freak like him has.
Yes.
And with a defense contractor who builds missiles, that's what you're doing. You're making sick little violent drawings all day, but you have the benefit of your drawings actually kill people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And then you got to feed a stray cat to the ATM.
Right.
I mean,
as Defense continues his journey, he gets blocked on his straight line because there is metro rail construction going on.
This was filmed right when the Los Angeles Metro was being constructed, the red and purple lines.
Yeah.
That was like sort of the last vestige of the Great Society subways.
Right.
Yeah.
And that system is still very incomplete to this day.
But they are still working on it.
They are still,
to their credit.
Yeah, they're doing it just to fuck up my walk home.
Yeah, exactly.
There's so much of this movie, and again, it's part of like this very American concept of like, well, why doesn't this this work? And it's like, well, we put a bunch of roads here. It's like, but I need the road because of my car. And it's like, yes, that's the problem. We're trying to fix it by building more metro rail. Yes, but you're in my fucking way right now.
This is such a fun little, like, it's a small moment that really jumped out at me. I mean, first of all, because like if a train is mentioned, I'm going to get excited.
Yes.
But secondly, the ways that we impede ourselves through the development of our systems, this is something that happens constantly, and then we get mad about it.
Turns out building things does take time, and it does cause traffic to get blocked.
Good old days, you want to build a subway, what do? You dig a big hole in the street for 2 years, you build the subway, you cover it back over. Now we don't want to have that disruption, so it's like, all right, we're going to buy a tunnel boring machine, we're going to dig a pit, and then it's going to go for 8 years to go 3 miles, What
if we just made the tunnels really small and build them up over time?
And then we put little cars in them, maybe?
One at a time?
One car at a time.
Car at a time.
One little car at one tunnel at a time.
Only one at a time. You can't do anymore.
Gonna have pneumatic tubes.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was curious to hear your thoughts about this, Roz, because just as somebody who thinks a lot about these systems and these structures, what do you notice about the way that this movie presents infrastructure?
You are looking at a film that is, it's very Los Angeles. Everything's cars. We have defenses walking through incredibly hostile environments the entire time. I mean, he's credited as his license plate. The man is a car.
Yeah. We got to pause for a second because there
might
the siren. I think that's a good point. That's a really interesting. I never thought about the fact that he is a car in a way.
Like my mother, the car.
Oh yeah.
Life is a highway.
Elon Musk's kid wiped a booger on the Resolute desk in the Oval Office.
Yeah.
So he swapped it out with the C&O desk.
Wait, is this? Are you joking, or did he actually swap out the desk?
A day ago, yeah.
What?
Yeah, and the C&O desk was, of course, built by the infamous Van Swearingen brothers of Cleveland.
They cussed a lot.
Yeah, and
they kissed a lot?
Cussed.
Oh,
Jesus.
sorry.
Everything's incest with you.
No. Yes.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
They did each other?
They shared a bedroom in their huge mansion and never married and are buried in the same grave that just says brothers.
Okay, this is
oh my God.
Previously I thought that this was getting cut, but this is absolutely staying in.
Oh my.
This is fucked up.
But
there might be kind of a weird beginning because there's a siren.
Yeah, exactly. No one's going to have any idea where we're coming from. But they owned the Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad and had some custom-made desks for their offices, one of which, through a series of owners, was donated to the White House.
And so now it's in the Oval Office?
Yes, it's one of several presidential desks.
There's like a handful of desks that I don't know the last time we've had a new desk there.
Nah,
but like the Resolute, I think that was made from a boat.
Yeah, the Resolute was made from the
This
HMS
boat.
Resolute. The C&O desk was the favorite of George H.W. Bush.
Okay.
Really?
And it seems like a lot of vice presidents have used it, and those vice presidents who have become president afterwards seem to have really liked it. So I think the ergonomically, Donald Trump may wind up continuing to use the incest desk.
Oh my God! I mean, that's very appropriate for him as well for different reasons.
That's a good point.
It's just the right size for two people to sit at while they're holding hands.
That's right.
Yes.
So time.
One of whom is maybe his daughter. I don't know.
Who's to say? Who can say?
That's presidential desk, Chad.
No, let's pull it back to what we were talking about before, though. With you had mentioned, like defense. He is a car essentially.
He is a car. He is credited as his car's license plate.
Right.
And he is a pedestrian in Los Angeles, and he is going through. He's walking in a straight line home through some of the most hostile environments possible. Only, during, again, a heat wave of 82 degrees Fahrenheit,
so
10%
hot.
humidity. This is a film about being a pedestrian in Los Angeles. I mean,
yes, there's something too about like how his destructive nature too, like as if he is a car, like he's just plowing through pedestrians on his way home.
Keep a pin in that one too, because but he's walking past these like montages of misery. We're always seeing shots, and a lot of this is just like B-roll of a camera crew going around just getting real footage of people around.
There's a guy who is dying of AIDS. There are a couple just like, I guess, homeless guys in the park getting arrested by the cops.
Food stamp signs, a guy selling peanuts
right.
is also included in there as like the abject horrors of LA.
No, those are the peanuts of misery, Brian.
Oh, I see.
Misery peanuts.
I like to mix them up in a Waldorf salad with my grapes of wrath.
That was actually the original title for Paramore's misery business was Misery Peanuts. Few know this.
I'm in the misery peanuts. Let's crack it from the top. This is also a part where, this panhandler comes up and it's just like, haven't we all had that one guy who's just so annoying and
Michael
really
Douglas,
wants some stuff?
As defense, is the first person to discover that beggars lie sometimes. It's like, because he wants he owns this beggar with facts and logic.
That's right. It's an Aaron Sorkin moment, actually. He gets his Aaron Sorkin moment in on this beggar who is first lying about his resources and then about his food and then about his veteran status.
Yep. Stealing valor.
I feel like as we moved from the transition from the 80s and 90s into the 2000s, I think we lost sort of a very key component to scenes like this, which is the neener tone. So this guy asking for money is just like, you gotta give it to me. You gotta give it to me. And then we get to fucking Sorkin and it's the same lines, but delivered just lower in like pitch. So it's not so much satire anymore.
Sure.
Right.
Well, and
you lose that cartoonish edge.
And it's something that I think the movie, you can draw a connection here, but I think the movie fails to do it itself, is like, this guy is really entitled. He thinks the world owes him something.
Yes.
And Michael Douglas is able to beat his ass back verbally, but like, we don't get the whole like, and you also think the world owes you something.
Right.
Yeah.
He finally gives up the briefcase. He's taken the duffel bag full of every gun in the world.
Right.
Yes.
Again, that is a quote from the script. The least effective detective work. You knew guns were in the bag, but then you asked the lady, she said, all the guns in the world. And it's like, we have established nothing further than what you already knew.
Nope.
But he's like, I don't need this briefcase anymore. You take it. People in LA, they love briefcases. They love selling briefcases. He opens it up and he finds out it's not full of the treasure trove of manila folders and a single laser pointer.
It's just got like an apple and a sandwich.
It's got a sack lunch.
I was expecting the briefcase from Pulp Fiction. It's open for some nice yellow lighting.
And this does two things. One, it establishes that the homeless hate food.
Yes.
Beggars hate getting food.
Right.
But also, two, it drives another point in the defense is a fucking freak category.
Yeah.
Because why does he not have anything in his fucking briefcase except an apple, a sandwich, and a milk?
Yep.
And it's also makes him into much more of a jackass for not giving up his briefcase earlier when there's fuck all in it. Well, but it's just the idea of it.
But it's about pride, right? It's about his pride.
He's only got one briefcase, and I mean, then you got to go to the store.
No,
and
exactly.
Buy another
What
one.
if
He doesn't have to go to the store because he doesn't have a job.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Well, look, we're going to go ahead and take our break now. And when we get into the second half of this movie, we're going to see what happens when a man is really pushed to his limits by Burger.
Yes. Or lack thereof.
When I was a child, I would often go to Meijer, the Michigan supermarket chain, and enjoy purchasing the many convenient and sensibly priced grocery items they had on display. One of my favorite foods was their store brand equivalent of SpaghettiOs, which were known as spaghetti hoops with cheese. Back then, a can of spaghetti hoops cost 50 cents. Its equivalent product now costs $1.09 at all Meijer stores, including Meijer.com. This is bullshit, but we can still hold on to our past and keep alive the memory of the things that truly matter. And that's what I'm going to do this week for our Interstitial. I now present, for your edification and enjoyment, the poem I memorized when I was 9 years old from the back of the can of spaghetti hoops with cheese, as performed by Michael Douglas.
Hey, kids, have you heard the news? These are nutritious spaghetti hoops. But remember, these hoops cannot be tossed because of the yummy tomato sauce. So eat 'em all up and take it from me. You can't get enough spaghetti hoops with cheese.
Wait, so what is all this about Gilbert and Sullivan?
Yeah, I was wondering how we smoothly put this in, but I guess we're just going to go for it.
Yeah, we're after the break.
yeah.
No, I always like to
Just
sort
get a
of be
nice,
like mid-conversation.
nice segue,
Yes.
which is, my grandfather did Gilbert and Sullivan Community Theater sort of at Washington and Lee University. And so you have there's recordings of him and video of him. And, you have half the people who are trained, theater people. Another half are just people from Lexington, Virginia and Rockbridge County. So, you get a lot of Appalachian accents doing Gilbert and Sullivan.
Hell yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
So how did your grandpa stack up to the competition?
Good.
Yeah.
Pretty good. I mean, he was the Major General for, decades.
Decades.
Yeah, exactly. He was a big fixture.
Okay.
Did you get to see him perform in this ever?
I never got to see him perform.
Okay.
No.
I'm sure he was fabulous because, the Appalachian accent is actually closer to what original pronunciation of Gilbert and Sullivan would sound like.
Gilbert and Sullivan's not that old, AJ.
I know.
Here's the problem.
I had to make my OP joke because I studied it in college and I haven't gotten to it.
I thought you were
yet.
going in a different direction. I thought you were going to talk about Shakespeare, and then I got bamboozled.
That's what I mean.
No, I know, but fuck you.
The problem is he was from Detroit.
So were Gilbert and Sullivan. People don't know
exactly.
this.
They're
They're big-time Detroiters.
That was one of the original piracy cases there. Gilbert and Sullivan operettas were some of the most pirated operettas ever because
they kind of put it on themselves, right? By writing a musical about it.
The Pirates been saying, I'm the monarch of the sea, so on and so forth. They were almost every single production of Gilbert and Sullivan in the United States was totally unlicensed.
Yeah, hell yeah.
They just stole the script and put it on. Over in Britain, they could enforce stuff. In the United States, who gives a shit?
Yeah. Hell yeah.
We don't have copyright laws. We don't have any laws. We're America.
No laws here in America.
Yeah, not a single one. Not anymore.
The copyright laws are definitely going to stick around.
Except in the case of AI.
But thanks to fair use, we can continue to cover Falling Down from 1993. Yeah. And just to sort of get us caught back up to speed in terms of where we were, Defense has now gotten to a fast food joint known as Whammy Burger.
Yes.
And he walks up to the counter at Whammy Burger and, he's got something that he wants to order.
Yes, I'd like a ham and cheese whomlette and order wham fries.
I'm sorry. We stopped serving breakfast, but we are on the lunch menu now.
But I want breakfast.
Well, you can't have it. We're not serving it.
So you said. Is that the manager?
Yeah.
Could I speak to him, please?
Sure. Rick, there's a customer that would like to speak with you.
This is Brent Hinckley,
Yes, sir.
character actor.
Hi, I'd like some breakfast.
We stopped serving breakfast.
I know you stopped serving breakfast, Rick. Sheila told me you stopped serving breakfast. Why am I calling you by your first names? I don't even know who you are. I still call my boss Mister. I worked for him for 7.5 years, but I walk in here all of a sudden, total stranger, and I'm calling you Rick and Sheila like we're in some kind of AA meeting. I don't want to be your buddy, Rick. I just want a little breakfast.
Well, you can call me Miss Folsom if you want to.
Sheila, we stopped serving breakfast at 11:30.
Rick, have you ever heard the expression, the customer is always right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, here I am, the customer.
That's not our policy. You have to order something from the lunch menu.
I don't want lunch. I want breakfast.
Yeah, well, hey, I'm really sorry.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm really sorry, too.
So I wanted to clip that one in its entirety because this is probably the most famous scene from the movie.
Yeah, and I love the production design on this. I love that this feels like a very real fast food joint, right? Everything down to the Whomlette and the whammy fries.
Yeah. Well,
right?
I want to know what the Whomlette is. Is it just an omelet or is it like omelet as a sandwich?
I think it's an omelet as a sandwich.
Like. I would imagine so.
Like a McMuffin kind of situation.
Probably a pre-made on egg patty. Yeah,
that sounds right.
Yeah, and they're very extra with all of their production design here. He walks over this big like street painting of a burger. all the burgers are very thick and very rich, which is, of course, all just leading to this commentary on how once you get the burger, it's flat and ugly.
Yep.
Doesn't look anything like the pictures.
Yes.
What about consumer rights?
Absolutely.
Yes.
This is boomer moment number 3, right? This is whatever happened to good old customer service.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, and whenever I'm walking directly home in a straight line, I frequently I get to the Wawa and it's like 10:30 and
Right.
they don't have breakfast, and I'm like, damn, I wish I had a gym bag full of guns right now.
That's always my go-to thought too.
Yeah.
Is what if I had gun?
What if I had a gym bag full of guns?
And I love the really boomer complaint of like, why am I calling you by your first name? This is a somehow less funny Dennis Leary bit. Like,
Yeah.
it's just like, back in my day, we said sir and ma'am when we
Right.
got our fucking burgers.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
it's like,
it's
but
so
no, you
strange.
didn't. That's not how food service has ever been.
And it's
Right.
like,
True.
this is also the scene that I think gets the most like, damn, it really do be like that though.
Which is
Yeah.
insane
Yeah,
because
exactly.
it don't be like
No,
that.
it
really
does
does not.
It's
this
not like
guy,
that.
this guy needs to be locked up, as do all the YouTube commenters under this clip.
That is correct.
Yes. He thinks he's standing up for like this great like crusade, but it's just fucking petty grievances. And whenever you see people who go on these fucking rampages and you read their goddamn manifestos, it's full of contradictions.
Oh yeah.
And
Yes.
this is a smart thing where to draw the comparison to Death Wish, which is an explicitly right-wing, super preachy, super fucking boring, idiotic movie where Charles Bronson just starts shooting people.
Right.
He becomes a folk hero in that story. You have huge swaths of people in New York who are like, I'm going to kill muggers too. Like, hell yes, finally somebody's doing something about it.
Right.
And he doesn't become a folk hero in this movie.
No.
Like the only person that we find out who loves him, we'll learn about what makes that guy tick in a little bit.
Right.
But like this, he unfortunately does become a folk hero in the minds of so many in the audience. But he's like, yeah, the customer's always right. That's what I'm fucking fighting for. And
Yeah.
now I'm going to shoot a gun and point it at the other customers in the store
Yes.
because
Right.
I just want fucking breakfast. And it's 11:32 and they don't serve breakfast anymore.
This is also, it points to like his very specific racisms because like literally I think every single black character in this movie he's like stands with in some way. The kid who raises his hand in the Whammy Burger is this very adorable little black kid, and
Yeah.
he goes over to him and is like he treats him very kindly and is like always so kind. But again, any other ethnicity, he's like, I will beat the shit out of you, or I
Yeah.
will take your fucking land.
Because
But he
they're all
stands
seen
in
as
solidarity.
I
yeah.
guess because they're all seen as immigrants. So it's not the race so much as the
Right.
Where are you
Oh, yeah.
from?
Yeah.
Yes,
Maybe
yes,
he
yes.
has some very strange politics from the LA riots.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. This
Yeah,
film
no,
had
no.
to stop filming because of some of the riots.
Really?
in LA. Yeah, in
Defense
1992.
stands with foundational black
yeah,
Americans.
he was like, I hate the rooftop Koreans. I mean,
Yeah, which is so interesting because now the rooftop Korean is a fascist meme in
Yes.
the United States among white supremacists. They
Really?
love the rooftop Koreans because they want to fantasize about the idea of sniping black people from a rooftop.
Sure.
I think it was Gene Siskel who pointed this out, who was like, it's pretty tasteless to do this like shooting in a McDonald's. Because this is McDonald's, obviously. We're talking about it does breakfast, it's McDonald's.
Yeah.
Because there was a massacre that took place at a restaurant called Luby's in Texas in 1991.
I'm sorry. Foobies?
No,
It's not called Foobies. And in fact, this was the deadliest mass shooting in American history up until the Virginia Tech shooting. So how do you feel now, Josh?
I think it's really funny.
Okay, well,
I was about to say you can just trivialize mass shootings now.
Yeah,
They're
I
so
mean,
goddamn
they don't
easy.
matter anymore.
Doesn't matter. I might get mass shot when I walk directly home in a straight line.
Yeah.
I think this place was like
straight through the river.
like a buffet type place or like a furs type of business, and a guy drove his car directly into a building and shot up as many people as possible and then died.
Fucking
No one
hell.
really knows exactly why he did it, but like Gene Siskel was like, it seems pretty tasteless considering that we've had these like mass shootings at restaurants lately to have it depicted here in this movie.
Yeah, but I mean, that's kind of the point. Like, that's what they're going
right,
for.
but this scene shows just like how it's fucking McDonald's, dude.
Well, okay.
What are you freaking out about? And it shows also he did this whole I know how to aim a gun thing.
Right.
And then he's like holding the gun and he accidentally fires off like 12 bullets into the ceiling. He's like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. It slipped.
Are you really a gun owner if you haven't had a couple of negligent discharges? Come on.
You know, Brian,
we've all done it.
You say that, right? You say that it's presenting him in a weak light. But I've just got some YouTube comments up here that are going to set you straight.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Music Rose 9198 says, the older I get, the more I understand Michael Douglas's character in this movie.
No.
Nope.
We've also got Blue JDMMR2 who says, this movie is more relevant today than it was in 1993. This movie is timeless.
Really makes you think about society.
A lot of people saying like, wow, this sure still is relevant.
I will say, shooting up a McDonald's is a lot like Jesus throwing the moneylenders out of the temple.
I mean, really, when you think about it, the guys behind the counter at the McDonald's are the most powerful people in society.
They're basically Pharisees.
They're the bureaucracy keeping us from living a full life.
Yeah.
But I think the other thing
Last Supper is just Big Macs.
The other thing that drives this scene home too is that he's going fucking nuts and they're like, fine, we'll make breakfast. And he's like, no, actually, I'll have lunch.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Like, he's a bitch. He's you get Mac to slap up the big bitch sticker on the whiteboard. He is a bitch.
And I think that's again. I think that's part of the point of the scene. Like, it's people watching Starship Troopers and being like fascism rules. Like it's like the idea is that he is just so mercurial in what he wants at any given time, and it's all based on petty things. And then the minute he gets what he wants, like actually, no, I'm embarrassed that I like freaked out like that.
And this is the thing.
Yeah.
I think I said toward the beginning that I don't think that there is a single movie that encapsulates the boomer mindset better than this film. Right. This is an entire generation of people who were born into a period of prosperity and growth unprecedented in the history of civilization. As a result of growing up in this world where, especially as Americans, there was not even a living memory of like what you get in Britain, for instance, where there were people who fucking survived the Blitz, right?
Right.
We just won. And all we could do was keep on fucking winning. And that means that for people like Defense, any inconvenience, however how minor or minute, is unfathomably difficult to deal with. Yeah. And as a result of them, whoever they are, coming in and impeding our ability to get things done.
And it's also the first time, very critically, that he's doing this violence in front of an audience.
Yeah.
And the audience is recoiling from him.
Right.
Yeah.
And he sees the ramifications of his actions in real time, and he realizes that he is being unreasonable. Like the actual control factor in this movie, or what it's arguing for, is that these actors, if they're placed into a broader context, they're seen as monstrous, as opposed to like one-on-one when it's like, hell yeah, dude, just don't do it where you can get caught.
And that pulls us very through naturally into the next bit of the movie here, because we do have, by the way, I just wanted to point up a moment where Defense sees a solitary black man who is basically protesting the local savings and loan for declining his loan application.
Savings and loans, which of course had been going through their own bit of tumult lately.
Just a little bit, yeah.
If you want to hear us talking about savings and loan a little bit more, listen to our episode about James Dobson interviewing Ted Bundy.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I've said this before, if you're asking, what does that have to do with James Dobson interviewing Ted Bundy? Well, oh boy.
Hold on to your butts, folks. But that man ends up getting arrested and packed into a cop car, and he looks at Defense and he says, don't forget me. This is going to pay off later on. I just wanted to point that out.
This guy, it's a one-man picket. He just has this sign that says not economically viable. He's talking to people as they come in and out. He's standing on this sidewalk. He's doing nothing.
Yep.
And not only do the police come by, they arrest him and haul him away. Michael Douglas has been doing all of this crime and is walking down the street with this duffel bag full of guns.
Right.
And he is completely invisible to the police.
Because
he knows it. Like, he has his, like, woke moment of, like, a black guy can't do fucking anything in this country.
And so this carries us through to, I think, one of the most interesting pieces, right? Which is Defense going to this surplus store. It's an Army Navy surplus store. And when he gets in, he sees the guy behind the counter. The guy behind the counter has been listening to the police scanner and immediately realizes that this man, Defense, who's just walked in, is the guy who has been creating a great deal of chaos. Now, immediately after this happens, Sandra, who is the lady cop who's working together with Robert Duvall, she shows up at the store and she's seeking a man in his late 30s with all the guns.
Yep.
The shop owner immediately is like, nope, I haven't seen him, and she leaves. Notably, this same shop owner has already been saying some questionable things about a couple of gay men who he clocked in his store.
Yep.
And it seems that he has some sort of real hatred in his heart.
Yeah, he has some other thoughts about the kinds of people that go to McDonald's, the ethnic makeup of them, and the words that he likes to use for them.
That's right.
I do want to talk about the gay guys just for 30
go for
seconds.
it, please. I wanted to pull a clip of that scene. Unfortunately, it's mostly visual, so it didn't really translate well into a recorded format. But he's basically being like, hey, a whole bunch of really queer things are going on here.
Back when queer was still like a major slur.
Right.
Yeah, he's saying faggot like really loud in his conversation with Michael Douglas in the hopes that the two like huge muscle gays will hear him.
There's some big dudes.
These guys are jacked.
Yeah.
And I like that this is the early 90s, so we kind of get some telegraphing of them being gay by the clothes that they wear, but this is also what like straight guys were wearing too, the crop tops and the very deep tank tops.
Yep.
Yeah, so he wants to pick a fight with these two gay guys. They're enormous and they could easily beat his old ass down, but then he like pulls out a gun.
Right.
And they're
like an Old West revolver, like it's like a prop you get from Party City.
And they're very stereotypically portrayed, same as the linoleum tile salesman from earlier.
Yeah.
And I think it's just really interesting to see the way gay people are put up on this screen, directed by a gay man, Joel Schumacher.
A flamboyantly gay man.
Right. The guy who put nipples on the bat suit.
Right.
Well,
gave him a bat credit card.
You also, he's putting eye candy on the screen.
They're stereotypical in that everyone in this movie is a stereotype.
Right.
Yes.
But they're also, another director would have taken this further.
That's the thing.
Paul Verhoeven would have taken it further.
Absolutely.
Infinitely
But
further.
that's the thing. They're stereotypical, but they're not offensive in the way that a lot of the other stereotypes in this movie are pretty offensive. This is just, a couple of big, tough gays who still are a little light in the loafers and can get clocked if you're really tuned into it.
Yeah, but it is a sympathetic portrayal, and it's not mean-spirited in a way that a lot of like queer depictions in this time period by other directors who are much more hetero, right?
Or that a lot of depictions of other groups of people in this movie are.
Yes.
I mean, they do stand up for themselves, even though they leave. Like one guy knocks over the sunglasses stand,
Yeah. They are not to be trifled with, right?
Exactly.
They are not these emasculated figures that you see in a lot of other work. They will destroy you.
Say, look, I'm not getting shot today, but I will cause you some problems.
Yes.
So after this series of interactions, it's very clear that the owner of this shop is a really fucked up guy, and we get a sense of just how fucked up he is when he brings Defense up into the attic, which is full of Nazi shit. It's just Nazi memorabilia as far as the eye can see.
He has a Santa Claus like yard ornament that he has put a Nazi
the Nazi
which
Santa Claus
is
pretty
an
funny.
outfit I saw at my first SantaCon in New York City.
There was a Santa Nazi?
Yep, I walked up from Astor Place because I'd heard all the rumors of how terrible SantaCon was. I'm like, how bad could it possibly be? I walk up from the Astor Place subway station, and literally a Santa with a swastika walks by me, and I'm like, okay, cool.
I have heard so many things about the SantaCon, and I'm glad I have never been anywhere near the city when it happens.
Yeah, no, stay in Philly for that.
That shit sucks.
Sorry, we have mummers, which is at least fun.
Do they go around dressed like mummies?
No, they're it's a big parade. It's a big racist parade we do on New Year's Day.
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
but there's
fun.
also like a few mummers troops that aren't racist.
Okay,
but most of them are. But it's kind of like, well, you just tolerate it for a day.
I was just hoping that they were mummies.
Everyone goes and gets drunk at like 9 o'clock in the morning. It's fantastic.
Okay.
Oh, sure.
So, up in this attic, this guy's like, I believe in your mission, man.
Right.
And he's like, I don't even think I have a mission. He's like, I'm going to give you everything. He has a disposable
rocket launcher,
heat-seeking rocket launcher.
Really
I'm like,
good.
is that
One shot only. Yeah.
One shot only.
And then
I believe that is a real thing.
And defense is like, well, why are you willing to give me this? And the Nazi tells him,
We're the same, you and me. We're the same, don't you see? We are not the same.
Speaking rhymes.
Yeah.
And riddles.
I'm an American. You're a sick asshole. What kind of vigilante are you? I am not a vigilante. I am just trying to get home to my little girl's birthday. And if everybody will stay out of my way, then nobody will get hurt.
Fuck you! Who the fuck are you? Are you fucking with me?
I am just disagreeing with you! In America, we have the freedom of speech, the right to disagree!
Fuck you and your freedom! Who the fuck are you?
so this is, boomer mindset moment number 4, freedom of speech. It makes America great. But I
Who
guess,
are you and your Nazi attic with all the weapons to deny me my freedom of speech in this moment?
It's really funny. Yeah, well, speak on that.
So I love that he's there. He's walking directly home in a straight line. In order to do a murder-suicide.
Right.
And he's like, yeah, but I'm not a Nazi.
Yeah.
Come on, I'm just an ordinary maniac.
Right. He runs into a Nazi who agrees with everything that he says and does.
Right.
Right.
And it's like, well, I'm not like you.
Nah.
And this is, I guess, a question that I have just for everybody, right? Does the movie consider them to be fundamentally different or not? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I think that I understand the utility in the screenplay of this character.
Absolutely.
Which is, we have seen Michael Douglas do some pretty deplorable things. And there was probably a reading of the draft at one point that was like, so this guy's like a Nazi, right?
Right.
And this entire section just feels like the screenwriter being like, no, but he's not a Nazi though. He's not. He's so cool. Listen,
ordinary maniac.
Yeah, but I think that Schumacher comes in and is like, no, they are the same.
Right.
And so so what's on paper? 100% not. He's trying to prove that he's not a Nazi. But then Schumacher's like, actually, he is.
No,
he is.
I'm with you completely. Because again, to the point of costuming, he does successfully, defense does successfully defeat the Nazi. He kills him with his own gun.
Once again, defeated by facts and logic.
That's right.
Yep.
No, he doesn't defeat the Nazi with the gun. He defeats the Nazi with the butterfly knife.
Oh, that's right.
And then he uses
off
gun.
of the
That's
street
right.
tough. He kills him with a racialized weapon.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because we have a lot of laws around knives and specific types of knives that are apparently not subject to the whole right to bear arms aspect of the Constitution, because knives, and again, switchblades, butterfly knives, etc., are racialized in our history. They're associated with Mexicans, with immigrants, depending on Puerto Ricans, depending on your point in history and your point in the country.
He is able to stab him in the moment when he says the title of the movie.
Yeah.
Because the Nazi tries to put him into an impossible position.
Yeah, he's handcuffing him. So he's pushed him up against a table. So Michael Douglas is leaning over, his hands on the table, pulls up his right hand, gets the cuff on it. He says, "Give me your other hand." And Michael Douglas says, "I can't." He says, "Why?" He says, "Gravity. I'll fall down."
Right. Defense is in this moment then able to grab the knife, reach behind him and stab the guy, and then he finishes him off with his own gun.
Yes.
I think there's also a scene earlier, which I thought was interesting, was him struggling with trying to figure out how to open the butterfly knife. How does this damn thing work?
And there's also a moment he had bought this pink snow globe for his daughter. For
that
her
plays
birthday.
London Bridge, yeah.
Plays London Bridge. It's a nice feminine toy for her that's not a pistol. And the Nazi finds this and he's like, "What is a man? Why are you a man walking around with a toy for your daughter?" He says, "What is this fag shit?" And he throws it against the wall.
This is also the point where his glasses break.
Yes.
Where it cracks on the right lens.
The right lens. Anyone know what that's about?
I think I'm about to find out.
I know. We're about to find out. I'm bracing myself.
You guys ever heard of a gentleman named Samuel Peckinpah.
That's not a real name.
The director Sam Peckinpah.
No, that's not a real name.
Is this going to be a rubber buns and liquor joke?
This settler, you know?
It is a great name for a frontier settler, and he made a great movie about frontier settlers.
Damn near killed their paw.
I'm Sam Peckinpah.
It's such a good name. He directed The Wild Bunch, which is this disgustingly gory Western that was also up for a number of Oscars. And then he follows it up with the movie Straw Dogs, starring Dustin Hoffman.
Yes, okay.
And it's a movie about extremity to its own extreme. A great piece of just grisly, violent, very easily, arguably right-wing film about a guy going to the worst place that you could possibly go, rural England, and society breaks down to a point where he becomes this violent killer. There's a point where a guy gets like a bear trap snapped on his neck. It's so fucking good. Straw Dogs is a masterpiece, but it's one of the main images of it is Dustin Hoffman with the right lens of his glasses cracked. It's also even the poster, they've like shattered the lens on his face.
Yeah.
So this is a direct reference to that movie.
Interesting.
I wanted real quick though to pull it back to what you were talking about a moment ago, AJ, about how like Schumacher, I think, does make it pretty explicit that he considers there to be no fundamental difference between Defense and the Nazi.
Right.
Because the next scene that we get is Defense sitting in this chair, and he's mostly out of focus.
Yes.
And you think it's not intentional? I think it is. I think it is intentional.
I think that the degree of the focus, and because it's part of a longer camera move, that they just picked a better performance in a worse shot,
maybe,
a worse take.
The point here is he is fully surrounded by this Nazi memorabilia. He is calling his ex-wife, talking about how no matter what it is that she wants, he is coming home. That this is the moment where he is in like a blackout. He's on the other side of the moon and he's about to come back around, right?
Yeah, he's crossed the Rubicon at this point.
Point of no return.
Point of no return. That's what it was.
The audio is really interesting here too, because typically when you have a phone call in a movie, whoever you see, they're going to sound normal, and whoever you don't see, they're going to sound like they're on the phone.
Yes.
And so before we had another phone call where it's just cutting evenly. Each time someone is talking, you see them. Here, you're hearing voices from off screen. It's the other person on the phone, but they don't make it sound like it's inside the phone.
Right.
It just sounds like you're in the room with both of them at the same time. It's really interesting and it's really spooky because he makes that call. He talks to her, but he talks to her with his full voice present,
right?
Almost like he's standing behind her.
Exactly. Yeah. And you get this sense of menace, of dread, of foreboding. And the next time you see Defense, he's wearing a Nazi flak jacket.
Yeah.
Yes.
He also uses the Apollo project as a metaphor, but doesn't seem to really understand it. Damn. No wonder this guy got fired.
Yeah, but it's also like that's what reading a lot of those manifestos feels like, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot of metaphors that don't go anywhere and a lot of rambling. And he's like starting to take on more and more of that persona.
Yes.
Because, like we mentioned Breaking Bad before, every person that he encounters, he like takes a thing from them and absorbs it into his personality because he is actually not on the offensive here, right? He is constantly on the defense, right? And because of that, it's just other people's aggression, man, that's making him do this. He's just learned by watching you, Nazi man.
He's just reacting. He's reactionary.
Yeah, very slowly becoming the median voter.
Yes. The New York Times actually bursts into the last scene of this and tries to interview him about why he voted for Trump. Yeah. It takes place in a diner. You know the one.
On the other side of things, Robert Duvall has continued to track Defense down. He actually ends up getting to the grocery store from the beginning of the movie. He has an impulse when he sees the billboard. He's like, wait, I've been here. He goes over the hill and realizes, oh shit.
That's the car.
That's the car. That guy who I saw walk away is the guy who's been doing all of this shit. So he knows who he's after now. Meanwhile, Defense, like I said, fully outfitted in a Nazi flak jacket, is continuing to harass anybody who gets in his way, including a worker who I guess is like working on this road project.
This is the dummest scene in the movie.
By far and away.
By far just absolute stupidity.
But I
think it's kind of fun.
I think it's kind of fun too, which is
the ending is
the whole movie is fun.
This is why I pulled the clip though, because Defense sees this guy just sitting on this road, seemingly doing nothing, And he basically he appoints himself maybe a representative of a department of governmental efficiency, let's say.
I'm the foreman now.
What are you doing to the street?
We're fixing it. What the hell does it look like?
Walking in.
2 days ago was fine. You telling me the street fell apart in 2 days?
Well, I guess
Yes.
so.
There's the neener.
Pardon me, but that's bullshit. I want to know what's wrong with the street. See, I don't think anything's wrong with the street. I think you're just trying to justify your inflated budgets.
What are you, nuts?
No, I know how it works. If you don't spend the money you have projected this year, they won't give you the same amount next year. Now, I want you to admit there's nothing wrong with the street.
Fuck you, pal, huh?
You're not gonna hold us hostage here with these yellow lights and all these big trucks.
He flashes a gun.
Look, I'm just here to keep people from falling in, that's all.
I want to hear it from you. What's wrong with the street?
I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I think it's a sewer job.
You're lying. What's wrong with the street?
Nothing.
Whoa. Street construction. It always happens for no fucking reason because our cities have too much money.
That's right. Boomer mindset moment number 5. Spending is out of control. We have to get these budgets in line.
Yeah. Nothing should ever be maintained.
That's
Only
right.
fix it after it breaks.
Only fix it after it breaks. We're never going to replace a 50-year-old water main.
And this really fucking jumped out at me as being like, God damn, we are just right in the moment.
Yeah.
We have an entire department of governmental efficiency that is run by 19-year-old defenses. It's insane.
Yeah.
And they're all like, nah, don't replace the 150-year-old water main. 50 years is pretty young, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This boomer mindset of, if I can't understand what's going on, it must be wasteful.
Yeah.
This is now in control of the entire fucking country in a way that has not been the case up until this point.
Yeah, modern falling down is some 19-year-old broccoli-haired Zoomer wearing H&M.
Right.
Like, who's never had anything bad happen to him, just being like, yeah, fuck it. I read some posts that made me mad, and I can't get a date.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't give a shit. Never, just fill in the potholes, never resurface the street.
Right. Anything else is just a waste of resources.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Honestly, leave the potholes. It's too expensive to fill that shit in.
That's right.
Just
Yeah, we might as well.
forever.
You have eyes.
We might as well just blow it up with a bazooka.
Exactly.
Well,
and that's, of course, exactly what defense does.
That is one way to get the street fixed.
Yes.
Yeah, Michael Douglas opens up his disposable heat-seeking missile
that he got
with
from
the
the
help
Nazi.
of like a 10-year-old black child.
Yeah, no, the kid comes out.
Yeah.
It's great. I love
I
this
love
bit.
this scene.
It's a good
I love
bit.
the kid just casually explaining how it works.
'Cause he
and,
saw it on TV.
Because he saw it on TV. And he thinks
of
that this is a
course.
TV show. And he's like, where's the camera? He's like, it's far away.
He's wearing a Japanese baseball jersey, by the way. I thought that was kind of
Oh,
fun.
yeah. But here's the thing, right? And I think it's a fun scene. I think ideologically, it's so fucked because this movie is constantly trying to equate black liberation with the struggles of this white guy, that we are all the same, like class solidarity here. And I'm like, motherfucker, you are not in the same class. Your problems are not the same.
But that's the thing,
Defense
right?
was our first black president.
Like it's hard to know because of how this movie is constantly trying to have it both ways. I think you can just as easily look at this scene and be like, his false equivalency here is fucked. But the movie doesn't present it that way. The movie has its finger so heavily on the scale.
This movie is the 90s. This is just like what politics were in the 90s.
Yeah, I would say that, except for when he's watching that guy get taken away by the cops, right? And there's that long lingering moment of the two of them like making eye contact. He's like, don't forget me.
Right.
And he like nods along
So
with
this
them.
is his way of getting back at society for the economically non-viable man.
I don't think I mentioned that guy is also dressed exactly the same as Defense.
Yeah, that's really important.
That is right. Yeah. I was actually surprised in that scene that Defense did not raise his fist in solidarity as the car drove by.
Well, that's not what you would do. That's the old way. That's what you did in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
This is a new era. This is the 90s, and nothing fucking matters.
I just feel like with this scene, the construction worker, all I can think is, you're on a job site and you have no idea what the job is? What the hell's wrong with you?
What is happening? That's just what it's like in the fucking society we live in, man.
So, there's one guy working and 50 guys standing around.
That's right.
Damn, this must be a union job.
He's trying to keep guys from falling down.
Oh, yeah.
By
good point,
shooting
good point.
missiles at them.
Yep.
And I just, the way that the missile being fired, like the way that is shot is so inept.
Yeah.
It's such a like you don't get to see the missile.
No, you don't get to see it. You don't get to see
You just
anything.
get the camera kind of going along the ground like the missile's under here.
It reminded me of the filmmaking from the Flintstones movie, like the live action Flintstones movie where they're like it's just so it doesn't work. It's like the one part of the cartoon of Joel Schumacher that doesn't translate as well.
Yeah, I want to see the missile.
Yeah, it's cartoonish, but it's not cartoonish enough.
Yeah.
Cartoonish derogatory.
Well, okay, so here, I'll tell you what actually is a pretty good cartoonish scene.
Yeah.
Is when defense goes to the country club and
Yes.
is fucking around with those golfers.
Yeah, now we got to take on the yuppies. We
That's
haven't
right.
gotten them yet. We got to get to them.
Or I guess O-uppies in this case, because they're quite old.
We do get a series of the worst people imaginable.
Yes.
And he raises some legitimate criticisms of golf courses.
Yeah, defense is a yimby.
Yeah, he's like, this whole place should be one big petting zoo.
Great little moment there too, where the guy tees off directly at his head, and then he pulls out a shotgun on him,
and then he immediately has a heart attack.
Yes.
He falls over.
Very good.
I really
it's a
love
great scene.
because then he turns around and he shoots the caddy, right? Not the caddy, the golf
cart.
cart.
The golf cart.
The caddy is a guy.
He does not hit the guy.
Because this is like the important thing is that he doesn't kill anybody directly.
Right. So the golf cart goes down the hill and falls into the pond, and that's where this guy's heart medication is. And he's just like, "Wow, I guess you're gonna die in that stupid hat." And I'm like, "Yeah, this is actually
this is really great. It's great. Yeah.
If more of the movie was like this, I would give it more of my full-throated recommendation.
Absolutely, yes.
But we also see a little bit more of defense's backstory because Robert Duvall tracks down his mom, who is Lois Smith, by the way, turning in a great performance.
Tremendous.
He's building stuff to protect us from the communists.
Yeah. That's her thing. She knows that's what he does. He protects us from the communists.
Yeah.
It's 1993.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, think about North Korea and Cuba.
That's right.
But that's another great thing. Of course he's obsolete at his job. What do we have to send our bombs to?
Right.
Nowhere.
Well,
some places.
Panama,
Yeah.
right?
Panama. Iraq
Bad news,
still a little bit. Yeah.
Bad news. The peace dividend is coming.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
And-
Never mind. Let's go do a war in Iraq.
To the point of other allusions that this movie makes references, this is such a clear reference to the Glass Menagerie, where Lois Smith has an actual glass menagerie, and I was half expecting a sister to come in and have leg braces on.
Projections.
Yeah.
Just dominate the screen.
Yeah, there's this because Robert Duvall is married to a hysterical woman.
Right.
He knows how to talk to hysterical women. So he's just like, oh, so you got a little glass skunk there, huh?
And again, Lois Smith doing fantastic work with a pretty poorly written role.
Yeah, this is maybe the worst woman.
But the thing that we do get out of this is that it turns out that defense was fired from his job about a month ago. His mom did not find out. She doesn't know why it is that he's going out every day, much like in the Glass Menagerie.
Yes. Yes. But as opposed to sucking off dudes in a movie house.
Right.
Instead, he goes somewhere. Brian, I know you had some
My
thoughts on
assumption
this.
is that he's going to his house every day and just watching from across the street.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Oh, interesting.
And
Yeah.
he eats his little sack lunch and then goes home.
Which he's not allowed to do, by the way. He has a restraining order on him.
Yeah. Either 100 feet or 100 yards, and we don't know. And for some reason, that's in the dialogue.
No, I actually kind of really like that. It's just one of those funny little things.
It feels like they're trying to, again, get both sides of this. One, yeah, he needs to be as far away from his family as possible. But two, these mean old family court judges, they needed to make an example out of him. They're alienating America's fathers.
100 feet is like one lot in Los Angeles.
I mean, that's true. If it was 100 feet, he actually probably could park across the street and not be within violation of it. But
probably, the park diagonally over, probably
but
60 foot right away.
Yeah, his dream of having, a wife, a child, and a tract house, has completely fallen apart. He doesn't have his 9-to-5 office job. He's not making missiles. He's not protecting us from the communists. He doesn't have drawings that can kill people anymore.
Yes.
And he's overeducated and underskilled, or overskilled and undereducated. He doesn't know which.
Right.
He doesn't know what he is anymore.
And so this really brings us to what I think is the thesis statement of the movie, where Defense moves on in his continuing one-way line to a really nice house that is like this big estate of some sort, right?
Yes.
And
he comes on, his hand is bleeding, and he's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why do you have barbed wire on your fence? A guy can't even break in without getting hurt.
And there's a family.
Legitimate complaint.
Absolutely. There's a family there, and it's unclear whether this is actually the family who lives there and they're pretending to not be the family who lives there or whatever. The point is, he is seeing this family that is basically a representation of the thing that he wishes he still had. It's a mom, a dad, and a little girl. And he ends up taking this family hostage, basically, once they realize that he is not a member of the security company they hired to protect the house. He's the danger.
Yes.
And then my interpretation here was that they were the dad was the caretaker for the house.
That's what he claims.
Brought the family in for like impromptu pool party.
Yeah. When the guy who owns it is away, he lets them come over and use the barbecue, or they're just doing Parasite.
I actually do really like the interpretation that is the plastic surgeon in his family, and he's just like pretending to play dumb.
See, I think that's what I think it's implying personally.
Because this mansion belongs to a plastic surgeon, which sends him on another little spiral. Like, I make missiles and I don't make this kind of money, but this guy does plastic surgery.
And then
before we recognize this as necessary care.
Yeah, right.
yes.
And so we basically have Defense pouring his heart out to this family in his moment of absolute crisis.
I lost my job. Well, actually, I didn't lose it. It lost me. I'm overeducated, underskilled. Maybe it's the other way around, I forget. But I'm obsolete. I'm not economically viable. I can't even support my own kid. Oh, jeez, you're hurt. Oh, honey, I'm sorry. I didn't hurt you, honey. I didn't hurt you. I'm sorry. I didn't hurt you, sweetheart.
It's all right. It's all right. It's your hand. You cut your hand.
So he notices the blood on his hand and thinks that he's hurt the little girl who he's holding on to there. And this is really upsetting to him, obviously, because the only thing that he has in the top of his mind at this point is his own little girl.
Yeah. And it's the movie's like last chance bid to get you to feel sorry for this guy.
Right.
Right. Because his actions from here on out are pretty despicable.
Yeah.
And, in
a way that the previous actions weren't.
Yes.
Like the other actions were definitely bad.
Yes.
But then he killed that nice man who owned the store. He went after a small businessman.
He didn't kill him. That guy was fine.
No, the guy he stabbed with the knife.
Oh, him. Sorry, the Nazi.
Well, okay.
He also
so he has some beliefs that are different from yours.
He says he's overeducated and underskilled, and I sort of wonder what he means here. And I think it clicked in my head. Oh, his office just started using AutoCAD.
Shit.
He's like, and maybe he was doing manual drafting before, and it's
we see all the handwritten notebooks and calculations and everything.
Yeah, exactly. He's very good at it. But the other thing is, he didn't get laid off. He probably, like many of us, started using AutoCAD and just went fucking insane.
I mean, it's interesting, right? Because my dad is also an engineer, and I remember when his office started to make the transition from traditional drafting to AutoCAD, because there was a sort of transitional period where you would still do a lot of the drafting on big boards, but with a digital tool. And then, of course, eventually it just went to now you're just clicking everything on your screen.
I worked in an office that did a lot of manual drafting, and it is so much better. That program is so bad. I don't understand how it's the standard. I mean, there's nothing better than it, but it.
Oh, you could do Vectorworks, Google SketchUp?
Yeah, come on.
the options exist in the market. You just have to stand up for yourself as a consumer and use shit that's somehow the worst shit in the world.
Exactly.
Yes.
I don't know. Give me the pencil. Come on.
I wanted to pull it back to that point, though, which I think is really important. That the early 90s, this is now when technology is becoming fully ascendant. So much of what people have been doing up until this point is going to be supplanted or even replaced by automation.
Right.
And that is one of the anxieties that undergirds everything that boomers are.
Yes.
Like alongside the tremendous burst in productivity, wealth, all that sort of thing, came a parallel burst in computational power and these systems that can do a lot of the things that you used to have to do on your own. And you eventually get left behind. And this is what he is feeling so acutely right now, is being left behind.
And it's also just that, like, in America, the line must always go up under the system that we find ourselves living, right? The line always must go up. And boomers took this and made it their entire personality because they cannot let go of power. They must always be becoming more powerful. There's a better way to say that, right?
Well,
they never retire.
They can't release
they never
anything.
retire,
They are unwilling to release anything. We talked about this with A Christmas Story, how for some reason we are still celebrating Boomer Christmas all these years later. Like, nothing in our public sphere can become a new thing because they won't fucking let go.
Yes. And I think a large part of that is just the American culture and the American psyche. And we see that personified in Defense.
Yes.
Right.
Just to gloss a couple other things that happen, you know, the cops decline to further protect Beth because they're like, there is no real threat here.
Well, because the city demands a number of cop cars to be on the street at any time. There's some sort of political complaint that
This is a car-brained moment.
Yes.
Because they're like, well, you know, he would have been able to drive over by now.
Right.
So, you know, he's not coming, clearly. And they are not aware that he is walking directly there in a straight line.
I mean, he is, at this point, he is literally around the corner. He gets on a payphone, calls her again. It's like, hey, our favorite spot has been changed to this other fucking weird thing. And she immediately realizes, oh, shit. He's around the corner. I have to go.
I had to get out of my crappy house in Santa Monica that now costs $4 million.
I was going to say,
Venice Beach.
This place must be so expensive now.
Well, this place probably doesn't exist anymore. This place probably got leveled in favor of something new.
Yeah, and I think it's also very important to point out that it was their favorite ice cream shop that was replaced by Hare Krishna's. That it is another immigrant that has taken this once American thing.
I mean, the Hare Krishnas are
it.
mostly not immigrants.
Well,
They're just
the movement immigrants.
The movement shoes on.
So, Defense is now he is an immediate threat. He actually gets into the house the moment that Beth leaves, and Robert Duvall dresses down his wife over the phone and then punches another cop who dissed his wife and heads over to the house.
He decides to finally be a real man, and he's like, woman, I'm going to cure your hysteria by saying, shut the fuck up and make me dinner, and it better be the way I like it.
That's right.
And she gets so turned on by this.
Like, she's like, oh, that's the thing about the perspective of this movie is that this is 100% correct.
It's my last day on the force. I have to go put my life in danger.
That's right.
Though I want to mention the thing inside the house just because this, for me, is the moment that solidifies what Defense is to me.
When he's watching the videotapes?
Yeah, I think this is the core of his character.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this is why I think it's so ridiculous that people are so fucking dumb that they walk out of this movie thinking that this guy is correct and cool. Because the home videos, again, drive it home. He was always this way.
That's right.
Yes.
Right.
He has, these beautiful memories, right? That's always what you use the home videos for.
Yep.
It's like, the nice time. The time that's been gone because my bitch wife left me with our bitch daughter. And he's with his daughter and his wife, and they're celebrating a birthday years ago, and they're all having fun.
Yeah, this is probably the kid's maybe third birthday or so.
Yeah, and he wants to pose something a specific way, and then the kid gets fussy because she's a little kid, and then he loses his shit on her.
Out, and it's harrowing, and it's really good, actually. It's really good acting from Michael Douglas here.
And it's again saying that perfect time, that ideal thing that you were always told in advertisements never exists.
Real. It isn't real. It never was real.
Yeah.
And the gloss that you put on it retroactively is a consequence of the way that you process your own nostalgia.
Yes.
And it makes it so clear, too, that moment that this man is so fucking dangerous, terrifyingly dangerous.
Yes,
because he's just sitting there holding the squirt gun,
like,
looking at the TV.
Listen, you kid, you have to have a good time right now.
Yeah.
Reminded me strongly of an uncle.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no, yeah.
An uncle of yours specifically?
An uncle of mine, yeah. We used to, pick up the kids and, dunk them in the pool. And it was like, well, I don't think I'm into this. Well, too bad. You're going in the pool.
Right. Yeah. And it's also like we've seen before in the Whammy Burger, right? He is confronted with his own monstrosity and then changes his behavior because of it. But in this case, he is confronted with his monstrosity and is like, he just, his mind actually can't process it.
Right.
And so he's just like, there's only one way to go, which is forward.
That's
and
right.
I'm going to kill my wife and daughter.
Yeah,
That's
exactly,
right.
exactly.
And so
they're very much like you read in the book, okay, I have to do this, and then the kid will be happy.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so then he, proceeds out to the pier because he knows that that's where his wife is going to be. Robert Duvall then shows up at just the right time.
Yes.
And is able to sort of coordinate a distraction that then allows Barbara Hershey to take possession of the gun and throw it into the sea. His wife and his daughter run down the pier away from him. Defense is now disarmed.
He just got Columboed.
What are we gonna do?
I don't know. I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Oh, guys like you always say you don't know what you're gonna do until you do it. I think you know exactly what you were gonna do. You were gonna kill your wife and child.
Oh.
Yeah. And then you knew it would be too late to turn back. It would be real easy to turn the gun around on yourself. Now let's go meet some nice policemen. They're good guys. Come on, let's go.
I'm the bad guy?
Yeah.
That line read is so good.
So good.
So good.
Yeah.
How'd that happen? I did everything they told me to. Did you know I build missiles?
Yeah.
I helped to protect America? You should be rewarded for that. Instead, they give it to the plastic surgeon. They lied to me.
Is that what this is about? You're angry because you got lied to? Is that why my chicken dinner's drying out in the oven? Hey, they lie to everybody. They lie to the fish. But that doesn't give you any special right to do what you did today. The only thing that makes you special is that little girl. Now let's go.
But he doesn't go. Instead, he's like, I'm still armed, and basically dares Robert Duvall to do a suicide by cop on him.
Yeah, he wants to go out like a cowboy.
Right.
Yeah.
This is also a little bit of a Death Wish thing. This happens towards the end of Death Wish, where they make all these cowboy movie references, and so he draws his gun, gets shot. It's the squirt gun.
It's the squirt gun. Yeah.
And I actually love this choreography that happens when he gets shot and he bounces like immediately back up. Like he hits the pier and bounces up like one of those clowns, the clown dolls you can punch and they pop boppos or whatever. And I don't know, he starts to become more childlike.
Yes.
As this goes along,
Yeah.
the world all of a sudden becomes this black and white of good guys and bad guys, where before he was arguing like very petty, specific grievances. And now it's just this wider, like, what else was I supposed to do?
Yeah.
It was at this moment he knew he fucked up.
Yeah.
And Robert Duvall, Prendergast, is like, look, things change in the world and it's big and it's scary, but also like shit just happens for no reason. My daughter died for no reason when she was a toddler. I have no one to blame about this, right? This is just the whips and scorns that flesh is heir to.
And I think that if you cut every other scene with Robert Duvall in this movie and just kept this one, I think that would be a really fascinating watch.
Just like a guy who comes out of nowhere and he's like, whole backstory.
Exactly.
Yeah. And because then you're like, well, maybe he's just making the thing up about his dead daughter.
It could be.
And
You know
you're
what I
just
mean? It's
fully
like
inside Defense's mind the entire time, basically.
I think that would be a really wonderful watch.
LAPD is just confused because they can't imagine a crime spree from someone on foot.
Right. It's just like, you didn't have a car? What do you mean?
Where's the car?
And then Prendergast gets his like final masculine moment.
Yeah.
Because they're doing like, the news is talking to the cops and he walks up and he just says fuck on live TV.
Yeah, to the chief who he hates.
Yep.
Yeah. Because the chief is trying to take credit for his work, even though he called him a bitch earlier, you know. So
But now he's ready to go back home to his wife. There's this great moment earlier with the lady cop where he says, there's one thing I didn't tell you about my wife. And he grabs her by the shoulders and he just says, I love her.
Yeah.
And it's something that because Duvall delivers it so well.
Yeah.
that
You buy it.
squares all the rest of it because she is portrayed so poorly.
Yes.
And the
And-
relationship is basically non-existent.
And I should mention that the lady cop also got shot. That was a thing that
Oh, yeah.
happened
Oh,
earlier.
yeah.
That's
It
a plot
happened
point.
earlier,
that
yeah.
Although it
matters,
does
maybe.
kind of look like the dog did it because he runs outside and the dog is just sitting next to her. I'm like, get away from that dog. He has a gun.
Maybe the cops are justified in shooting the dog.
From my understanding, the cops are always justified in shooting a dog.
They
don't know how to shoot the dog because it's not driving a car.
Yeah, right.
That's a good point. That's a good
What do you
point.
mean the dog went there on foot?
The last
It was
image,
the dog the whole time.
the last image that you get in this film is that the home movie is still playing. Right?
Yeah.
Because everything that we've seen has been basically taking place in real time since defense left the house. And there's just a zoom in on this TV screen onto that cathode ray tube. You see defense's eyes very, very briefly, and then it's just a cut to black. And I really like this ending.
Because it's like, on the one hand, you look at it, and a defender of defense's actions in this movie is like, look what could have been.
Yeah.
He was such a good dad.
Yeah.
Completely ignoring the previous scene where he was watching the home movie and he's a monster and how always has been. But, you know, again, I think it's another example of the movie sort of having its cake and eating it too.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
It does not want to take a stance on defense and wants you to decide for it. The problem is that just leaves enough room for fascists to get in. You know, like it just leaves enough argument for their case.
Although it does also make a good cautionary tale against mass firing government employees and contractors.
Well, that's fair.
Yeah,
I think that
it's a good cautionary tale about reducing the size of the military-industrial complex.
and I think that's the last thing that I just kind of wanted to talk about real quick before we close here is, you know, we are now in a time where the actions that are being taken by the government could very well result in some, shall we say, falling down moments.
Some people might fall down. Yeah,
They might.
Yeah.
And that's fucking scary because the one thing that I think this movie really does nail is what it looks like when somebody is pushed to his absolute fucking limit and then breaks.
I mean, you know, because of this movie's cautionary tale, of course, we wisened up and did not give people the peace dividend. You know, we just kept building up the military-industrial complex forever. And then we used it in Iraq, which, kept all these guys in business. I don't know what we're going to do now. I mean, if we're winding everything, or if we are canceling contracts with Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman. I mean, you know, because the last time we did that, then we tried to get all these guys to build transit buses, and that went miserably.
The thing is, I don't think that these cuts are going to actually touch defense in a meaningful way. I think it's
Probably
going
not,
to touch
no.
everything else.
Yeah.
And you don't necessarily have to be a defense engineer to be this close to a mental break.
People do go postal.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
It's called going postal for a reason. Yeah.
And that's the other thing is that, like, this movie, in its depiction of this guy being driven to his extremes, Straw Dogs, the guy has a reason to get as violent as he does. That whole movie is about pushing beyond every sort of idea of what civilized society is until nothing is left but violence. Death Wish. An extreme thing happens, and so you're going to respond to that violence with violence. This guy is just dealing with the ever-mounting inconveniences of the day.
Right.
Traffic.
Yes.
McDonald's. Not being able to get change. Coke costs too much.
I will say that it depends on the government employee what the actual ramifications here are.
Yeah.
You know, if you're walking home in a straight line from your job as a defense contractor, you're going to run into a lot of people. On the other hand, you might have a falling down situation where you're a park ranger, right? And you walk home in a straight line and like you punch a bear or something. you know, and then you make it home fine.
Right.
Why?
Is that the bear?
That's the bear.
Oh, okay, right.
Yogi.
Well, Roz,
Hey, boo-boo. I got a boo-boo.
we want to thank you so much for taking the time to come all the way out to beautiful New York City.
Yes,
oh my God,
thank
I had
you.
to walk here in a straight line.
You walked all the way here in a straight line.
You're so wet.
And if there's anything that you wanted to say, either in terms of like closing thoughts on the movie and or places that people ought to try to find you if they want to follow you around online or whatever, what should they know?
I'm on Well, There's Your Problem. It's a podcast about engineering disasters with slides. It's on YouTube. It's on anywhere fine podcasts are sold. Go check it out.
Would note, by the way, that AJ and I have been on the show. We were on a bonus episode about the American theater. So
it was a really fun one. I mean, even just the preview of it is really fun.
Yeah.
So you should listen to
the
that.
flow chart from hell that we designed.
Yes.
Well,
How to get a play produced.
Yeah. Well, there's your problem on ice.
That's right.
Yeah. We have a tour coming up early May, late April. We still have seats in New York City. We still have seats in Philly. There may be another tour afterwards.
What?
Ooh, yeah.
A bonus tour.
Exciting places in the Midwest.
Holy cow.
Ooh, well.
Yeah, so that's going to be fun. We'll announce that properly on the podcast at some point. We're still in negotiations there. You know, walking's pretty good.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I think this is a pro-pedestrian movie.
Yeah.
I will say that.
Yes.
I think if you are walking around with a big duffel bag full of guns, I support you.
Okay, great. and also, listener, if you want to support us, you don't even need to give us a duffel bag full of guns. You just need to go to patreon.com/worstofall.
I would say I would prefer you didn't.
Yeah, don't give us the duffel bag of guns.
You don't have a duffel bag full of guns tier.
Right.
Yeah.
No.
If
I'm going to go home when I walk straight home.
No. in a line.
I'm going to go on Patreon and start that tier.
Oh,
up.
okay, great.
Yeah. If you do want to send us a duffel bag full of guns, send it to Brian Alford at apartment New York City, New York. That's all getting bleeped, but it's going to be funny. It's going to be funny, so I've said it all.
But yeah, for $5 a month, a mere $5 in these unprecedented times, you get access to the premium episodes that we do every other week. Last week, we did a great episode with Devin, who, of course, is the editor of your very podcast.
This is true. Devin is a wonderful editor, and we love their contributions to the podcast. If you only listen to it, you're missing out.
It's true.
So
you miss a
much.
lot if you just listen. But yeah, Devin came on the show last week to talk about some episodes of really crack Christian children's radio drama. You should definitely check that out. You should check out the episode that Roz did with us about city skylines. You should check out all the episodes that we've had November on for as well. There's a couple of those. And just in general, I think enjoy our back catalog. You might find something to like. And I guess just to kind of put a closing bow on it, the last time I watched this movie, I think I was like a teenager, late teenager. And the movie had been billed to me as like, man, look at this. It's a cool guy. Yeah. He's had enough and he can't take it anymore. And he's going to give them the what for.
Yeah.
And going back to it this time around, I was struck so heavily, not by how cool this guy is, but how fucking pathetic he is.
Yeah.
I think that there are ways that the movie obviously doesn't succeed. We've talked about a lot of them. Mm-hmm. I think there are ways in which this movie tries to be woke and becomes, I guess, the opposite of that. But I think the thing that's going to stick with me this time around from this movie is what happens when you're put into an impossible situation. Somebody's trying to force you into a position that you cannot physically be in. And I think that we're all in this position right now in many ways. We're all in positions where it's like, how the fuck are we going to stay standing up? And I think sometimes the reality is you just have to let yourself fall down.
You're going to fall down, yeah, unfortunately.
I'm the worst of all possible Joshes.
I'm the worst of all possible AJs.
And I'm the worst of all possible Brians.
I'm the worst of all possible Rozes.
Oh, yeah. Yes! Yes! See you next week.
They got to remake this with bicycles.